Chapter 255. It was as if he was in a sea of thunder and lightning. Any foreign object that entered this sea would be greatly repelled and attacked fiercely. At this moment, Indra was an outsider, a foreign object in the thunder and lightning. Naturally, the thunder and lightning in the surroundings wanted to completely bombard him in a fine powder all the time, blasting him into countless dregs. Originally, it was already a torture similar to being cut into pieces. Now, with the movement of the demon refining cauldron in his body, the lightning became even more violent. Its power suddenly increased by an unknown amount. Countless golden lightning turned into golden spiritual snakes, covering the sky and covering the earth as they ferociously pounced towards Indra. Come on. The purple king mark on his forehead flickered and pulsed, and an unyielding will spewed out from it, causing his will to become even more resolute. He gritted his teeth, causing them to creak. The wine god's gourd appeared in front of him, and a stream of golden, amber-like wine poured into his mouth and into his body. It turned into a huge amount of essence chi that filled his entire body. At this moment, there was nothing for him to be stingy about. Only by overcoming the demon tribulation would there be a future. The spiritual wine was precious, but compared to his life, it was not worth mentioning. Under the nourishment of the pure and abundant essence chi, the countless wounds caused by the thunder and lightning began to heal at an astonishing speed. He could understand the meaning of Chun Shi's words. Every time the thunder and lightning cut countless wounds on his body, after they healed, he could clearly feel that the wounds were tougher and stronger than before. His physical body was becoming stronger bit by bit. In this thunder and lightning, it was extremely painful to be constantly eroded by the thunder and lightning. The feeling was indescribable. However, it was also the best time to cultivate his body, especially for someone like him who had embarked on the path of ancient demon cultivation. The stronger his demon body was, the stronger his combat power and the stronger the power in his body. It had immeasurable benefits for cultivating battle skills. Therefore, how could he not know what Shinshi meant when he said that the longer he could endure in the thunder and lightning, the better? Crack, crack! Countless electric snakes rushed over. In just a moment, the violent thunder and lightning completely covered Sakura, and the power of Gung-Jin divine thunder completely broke out. Strands of black tiger fur were turned into fine powder by the lightning. The lightning was like a knife, cutting thousands of wounds of various sizes on his body. The wounds were densely packed and covered his entire body. Countless streaks of electricity flowed through the pores of his body and surged into his body. Once the lightning entered his body, the endless pain could no longer be concealed as it surged into every inch of his flesh. His heart pounded violently, beating hundreds of times every second. A powerful devouring force was continuously emitted from his heart, attracting the lightning and guiding it rapidly into his heart. It was as if thousands of rivers were flowing into the sea, continuously rushing into his heart. The heart was the demon residence. Once the lightning entered his heart, the domineering thunder and lightning also entered the demon residence ferociously. In an instant, the entire demon residence was filled with countless bolts of lightning, roaring as they began to wreak havoc in the demon residence. However, the demon refining cauldron in the center of the demon residence emitted a massive amount of devouring force and began to spin continuously. It was so fast that one could not even see its shape clearly. One could only see a ball of bright jade light spinning so quickly that it created a huge vortex around the jade cauldron. The devouring force was emitted from this vortex. Under the guidance of this devouring force, the lightning did not wait for the destruction to begin and quickly rushed into the demon refining cauldron. The demon refining cauldron was slowly filled with a cauldron of demon liquid. This demon liquid was demon essence, and the form of the demon liquid was already in a semi-solid state. It was transforming into a solid state. Once it solidified, it would become the demon clan's inner core. Under such circumstances, no matter how much one cultivated, the demon essence in one's body would not be able to continue increasing, and one's cultivation would come to a complete halt. This was a tribulation that every demon clan member had to go through, the demon tribulation. This was because the lightning and lightning of the transformation demon tribulation was different from the ninefold demon tribulation after the inner core had been formed. In this demon tribulation, although the lightning contained a powerful destructive force, it also contained a mysterious power of creation. In order to form the inner core, one had to devour the lightning and lightning of this demon tribulation. One had to refine the power of creation contained in the lightning and fuse it with one's own demon essence. Using the power of creation as a catalyst, the half-solid state would be reversed, and the inner core would finally be formed. Even with Sakra's willpower, he was still letting out shrill cries of agony. If this was a normal demonic tribulation, such a scene would definitely not occur. With his current strength, he would have a 90% chance of withstanding it. But this demonic tribulation, right now, was F*King abnormal. Its might was no less than 2 times stronger than before. Naturally, the pain he suffered would increase exponentially. However, the screams were just to vent the uncontrollable pain in his body. His gaze was unusually clear, and he maintained a calm state. However, there was a hint of madness in his gaze. He gritted his teeth and persevered. Being in this sea of lightning, countless bolts of lightning constantly surged into his body. A portion of these bolts of lightning entered the demon refining cauldron and fused with the demon essence in the cauldron bit by bit. At this moment, the demon essence was being continuously compressed under the stimulation of the power of creation in the lightning, and the liquid became more and more solid. "Reconstruct the demon meridian," Tion roared. With unparalleled willpower, he immersed his mind in his body and began to prepare to construct the 3rd demon meridian. He had already thought about this demon meridian long ago. It was the joy demon meridian. Coincidentally, the sorrow demon meridian in his body could guide the terrifying desire demon meridian from this demon meridian. It was also the easiest demon meridian to construct and control. All along, he had been preparing to form the inner core. At this moment, Tion followed his original plan and began to construct the demon meridian in the thunderclouds with unparalleled willpower. The thunderclouds were not a fun place. It was as if he was enduring thousands of bolts of lightning to do these things. He had to pay attention to the refinement of the demon essence in the demon mansion and construct the demon meridian at the same time, simultaneously doing several incomparably crucial things. One could well imagine how much perseverance and tenacious willpower one would need to do so. This was a hurdle that only ancient demon cultivators had to go through. For others who only needed to construct all the meridians in their Tao bodies, they did not need to go through this step. Once they took form, they would naturally evolve. Junior brothers and sisters, don't get entangled with these demons. Gather immediately and surround the reversing the universe demon binding net. Everyone, stand in a position and set up the inescapable net formation. Trap all these demons in the demon binding net, and then use your methods to deal with them. Wang Finger swept a glance at the battle situation around her. She realized that although the cultivation of her fellow disciples were high, they were all at a disadvantage. Their ferocity in the battle could not be compared to the demon kings like the Black Ape King. After all, every demon king had walked out of the law of natural selection. Which one of them had not gone through countless battles to achieve their current achievements? In the forest, there was no way to avoid bloodshed and fighting. How could a group of small cultivators from the Thousand Beasts sect compare to them in terms of experience in fighting? Therefore, although their cultivation was a level lower, if they really fought with their lives on the line, they would firmly suppress this group of cultivators. All right, capture this group of demons and avenge Junior Sister. When the remaining 7 cultivators heard this, they immediately unleashed their most powerful attacks without any hesitation, blasting their opponents away. Then, they immediately flew into the air and converged towards the terrifying inverse, the universe demon binding net. Demons, I'll let you see the power of my Dharma treasure today." Wang Finger stretched out her hand and pointed. The crimson vermilion bird that evolved from the fiery red pearl immediately burst forth with bright flames. It let out a loud cry and flapped its wings. Thousands of fiery feathers burst forth with the vermilion bird's fire immediately swept towards Medusa and enveloped her under the attack. There was no space for her to dodge. On the other hand, she seized this opportunity to immediately charge into midair and appeared before the large net in one go. Shockingly, the Nether Crow King was waiting coldly within the net with a flock of crows, and they didn't charge at the large net in a flurry. Because they'd already tested it earlier, and the toughness of the net had really attained an immeasurable state. It was really difficult to destroy. Although the Underworld Raven King was in the net, he did not panic. He was the king of the demon beasts. Once he gathered all the Underworld Ravens, he would activate his innate ability, Death's Gaze. He was confident that no cultivator in front of him could survive under that ability. Since he could not break through, he did not want to waste his effort. "Everyone, get ready to set up the inescapable net," Wang Finger shouted. 8 people surrounded the entire net in the middle. Each of them pulled a corner of the net and immediately poured the vital essence in their body into the net at the same time. Whoosh! As soon as the net received the vital essence, it immediately burst forth with a layer of dense white light. In the light, the demon-binding net immediately began to rapidly expand. The 8 people pulled the net in 8 directions at the same time. In an instant, the entire large net covered more than half of the sky, completely enveloping the ground below in one fell swoop. All the demon beasts were bound under the strange net without any exception. It was strange to say that under the cover of this strange net, no living creature could walk out of the range of the net. It was as if the area under the net had completely become a cage. The battle in the valley was also incomparably fierce. One had obtained the inheritance of the ancient fairy of 100 flowers. It could be said that she was blessed by the heavens and had a supreme foundation. The other was an old monster who had lived for who knows how many years since ancient times. When they fought, it was even more dangerous. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 256. Tion felt as if thousands of years had passed while he was in the thundercloud. However, it was only a blink of an eye outside. True Lord Ku Rong waved the wooden staff in his hand wildly, shattering the countless sword-shaped petals one by one. However, the more petals he destroyed, the more petals appeared in front of him. It was so overwhelming that it looked like a storm was raging. True Lord Ku Rong was very experienced. How could he not see that there was definitely a flaw in the flower-pinching finger? However, the petals in front of him were all identical. It would be extremely difficult to find the real one among the countless petals. Moreover, the split petals also had extremely sharp offensive power. Nonetheless, the older one was, the more cunning he became. He had countless tricks up his sleeves, so he immediately came up with a solution. He snorted coldly. "You have the flower-pinching finger that can split countless petals, but I, True Lord Ku Rong, have been unhindered for countless years. How can this little trick stump me? Watch my 10,000 vines dance." He waved the withering staff in front of him gently. The originally gray wooden staff turned white in the blink of an eye. Endless vitality burst out of the staff in an instant, and white light sprinkled on the ground like rain. Whoosh! Countless vines immediately broke out of the ground and grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, thousands of ancient vines completely covered an area of dozens of meters around True Lord Ku Rong. Moreover, they were like extremely agile long whips that swept toward the petals that filled the sky. Instantly, large patches of petals were completely annihilated by the ancient vine's attack. However, a large number of ancient vines were also cut into thousands of pieces by the petals. However, they grew back immediately. The petals and ancient vines collided wantonly in the valley. He wanted to use the ancient vines to find the real one of the petals. Rumble. In the sky above, there were continuous thunderous sounds coming from the huge tribulation cloud. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was rapidly being absorbed into the tribulation cloud to increase its power. Suddenly, waves of black chi in the sky surged into the tribulation clouds. Just by sensing this black chi, one would feel an incomparably dangerous omen. It was as if it contained an incomparably evil power. These wisps of black chi had appeared out of thin air. As soon as it appeared, it charged straight into the tribulation clouds. The scene was extremely strange. This black aura seems to be the power of desire condensed from the heavens and earth. Perfected Lord Ku Rong initially wanted to continue fighting Chun Shi as he was determined to capture the young fellow. Nevertheless, this change piqued his curiosity, so he asked in confusion, "This is strange. I've lived in this world for tens of thousands of years, but I've never heard that the heavenly disaster can absorb the power of desire. This has never happened before. Hey, this isn't right. Could it be?" An unusually shocked expression appeared on his face. Vaguely, there was a look of disbelief on his face as he opened his mouth wide. Could it be that this junior is actually following the path of ancient demon cultivation? He even has the guts to create the demonic meridian of desire? As soon as this thought appeared, there was a feeling of desolation in his mind. The power of desire was not only discovered by Socrates Ankai. In ancient times, there were many outstanding, peerless geniuses. Naturally, there was no lack of people who were interested in this power and wanted to take it for their own use. But in the end, they were all extremely miserable and almost none of them succeeded. Their endings were extremely frightening, and those who came after them were all timid. Therefore, there had always been a saying that the power of desire could not be used by anyone. This was almost a common sense, and no one had ever broken it for countless years. Perfected Lord Ku Rong knew this part of history, so how could he not be surprised? I don't know if this junior is too ignorant or too bold to create such a demonic meridian of desire. However, Junior, this perfected Lord, is a little interested. How can this little bit of power of desire be enough? Let me lend you a hand. Kid, take your time to enjoy it. TSK, TSK. Perfected Lord Ku Rong's eyes moved quickly, and a cold sneer appeared in his eyes. Suddenly, an extremely black pearl the size of a longan appeared in his hand. Without any hesitation, he threw the pearl into the tribulation cloud. Instantly, it fell into the tribulation cloud like a bolt of lightning. Crack! Lightning shot out and bombarded the strange black pearl. An extremely strange thing happened. The pearl did not resist at all and was directly blasted apart by the lightning. Countless cracks appeared on the pearl, and as soon as the cracks appeared, countless streams of black gas spewed out like a tide. A huge amount of black gas completely enveloped the entire sky in almost an instant, and madly surged into the tribulation cloud like tired birds returning to their nest. There seemed to be a bottomless hole in the tribulation cloud that swallowed as much black gas as there was. Junior, enjoy it well. Don't waste this perfected Lord's good intentions. Perfected Lord Ku Rong laughed strangely. What did you do to Di Shirtion? Seeing the previous scene, Chun-Chi's expression suddenly changed and became unusually ugly. Although she did not recognize what the pearl was, she knew that it was definitely not something good. It was definitely an extremely sinister thing. Her delicate hand reached into the flower basket again and plucked another petal from the seventh metal thunder flower. She shouted with a cold face. What did I do? It's just that this junior seems to be creating the demonic meridian of desire, and this perfected Lord found it rare, so I threw 100 Desires demonic pearl inside to lend him a hand. This perfected Lord had good intentions. What? That was the 100 Desires demonic pearl, just now. Chun-Chi's expression changed greatly, and her gaze towards perfected Lord Ku Rong became cold. What a vicious mind. You clearly know that to cultivate the demonic meridian of desire, one must have extremely strong control over the power of desire and cannot absorb too much power of desire each time. But you still threw 100 desires demonic pearl inside. If anything happens to Tion because of this, this king will definitely not let you off, even if I have to exhaust all of my resources. As she shouted coldly, she secretly prayed in her heart, Tion, oh, Tion, you must hold on. Otherwise, Chunshi will definitely avenge you. She did not recognize the pearl at first, but after hearing its name, the information from the inheritance immediately appeared in her mind. She could not help but frown about the origin of this demonic pearl. According to what she knew in her mind, there was a mysterious place on the purple gold mainland called the Limitless Desire Realm. This limitless desire realm was continuously emitted by countless living beings in the world over thousands of years. The endless desires accumulated and gathered together, and finally, it mutated and formed a mysterious place called the Limitless Desire Realm. In the Limitless Desire Realm, the endless desires of all living beings in the world were condensed. Once one entered it, they would be placed in the countless limitless desire realm. It was extremely terrifying. The power of desire in the limitless desire realm was so dense that it could not be estimated. After so many years, no one knew how strong the power of desire was. Anyway, it could be said that it was endless. Even the most powerful experts did not dare to enter that place easily. In fact, many people went in, and there were many peerless experts with earth-shattering divine powers. However, very few came out. However, there were two items that were related to the limitless desire realm. One was the demonic pearl of 100 desires. This demonic pearl was born in the limitless desire realm. The power of desire in it was so dense that it would gather together to form the demonic pearl of 100 desires. The power of desire in this demonic pearl of 100 desires was enormous. In ancient times, an evil cultivator once did an experiment. He threw a demonic pearl of 100 desires into an ancient city with millions of people. The demonic pearl of 100 desires exploded on the spot, and a huge amount of power of desire immediately covered the entire ancient city. In just a short day, all the living beings in the ancient city were buried in the endless desire. Moreover, the ancient city was no longer suitable for people to live in. It turned into a dead area. It could be seen that the power of desire in the demonic pearl of 100 desires was enormous. As for the second item, it was even more famous. It was said that after countless years of evolution, the endless power of desire in the limitless desire realm gave birth to a treasure called the virtual illusory realm. This treasure was actually a painting. When it was rolled up, it would become a painting scroll. However, this painting was the virtual illusory realm. The power of this treasure was not simple. It targeted the desires of all living beings in the world. As long as there was still desire in one's heart, there was no way to escape. As the saying went, everyone has desires. However, due to everyone's environment, responsibilities, principles, and so on, there are many reasons that are intricate and entangled together. They are suppressed in the body and restrict one's desires. Almost everyone has moments of hesitation and regret when they choose to give up their desires. There was an incomparably huge mystery contained within. As long as there was desire, there was no way to escape the power of the virtual illusory realm. After all, there were countless regrets in life, and they could be made up for in the virtual illusory realm. Think about it. If the past gave you a chance to choose again, would you be willing to give it up? As the saying went, once you entered the illusory realm, you could not control yourself. This treasure, the virtual illusory realm, had a great reputation in ancient times. It was an incomparably precious treasure. There were all kinds of miraculous uses in it. Speaking of which, Tion, who was in the tribulation cloud now, could absorb the power of desire in the world by himself. It was something that could be controlled by himself. He could absorb as much as he needed. Logically speaking, what he created was the demon meridian of joy, so there was almost no danger. However, with true Lord Ku Rong's interference, there was a sudden storm. Chapter 257. Even though Tion had created the Desire Meridian, which was the most difficult to create in the world, it did not mean that he had mastered these powers. He had only temporarily restrained them in his body and constructed a channel to connect to the power of desire in the outside world, which was a bridge for him to absorb the power of desire. Even his mind was only temporarily adapted to the sorrow meridian to a certain extent. He could restrain the sorrow in the sorrow meridian so that he would not be affected by it and fall into the same situation as when he was in the Zither realm. However, he did not really master this power of desire. The power of desire that he absorbed and stored his body was only an accumulation and did not bring any power to him. The creation of the demon meridian now was just to prepare for the future. It could be said that he was also laying his foundation. Originally, Tion was going to start preparing for the creation of the third demon meridian this time. He was going to spend some time in seclusion and try to create a cultivation method that belonged to him. However, there were some good words to say that plans could never keep up with changes. Take the current situation as an example. Originally, he did not intend to start the demonic tribulation at this time, but because he had to stop True Lord Ku Rong for a few breaths, he had to trigger the demonic tribulation and use the pressure of the demonic tribulation to temporarily stop him. As for himself, he had to start the demonic tribulation without any preparation. If the power of the demonic tribulation was several times stronger, then so be it. With his tenacious willpower, he was confident that he could withstand it. That boundless pain was something he could endure. He could grit his teeth and endure it. Anyway, although it was painful, it could temper his body. It was a blessing and a curse. He did not suffer in vain. When creating the demon meridian, the power of desire could not be too much. If it was too much, something bad would happen. If it all rushed into the body, the consequences would be frightening. The act of creating the demon meridian would definitely go out of control. It might cause all the hidden desires in the demon meridian in the body to erupt in an instant and rush to the mind. At that time, no matter how strong one's will was, they would sink in an instant. No, how can this be? Why is there suddenly so much power of desire rushing into my body? I didn't attract so much power. Even if I did, it should only be the desire of joy. It's impossible to have all the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Tion, who was in the thundercloud, was wholeheartedly creating the third demon meridian. However, as soon as he began to sculpt, he immediately realized that the surroundings seemed to be showing signs of difficulty in grasping the situation around him. He felt as if he was suddenly in a place full of desire. There was an endless power of desire all around him that was desperately trying to drill into his body. But he did not know that True Lord Ku Rong Tion, which contained endless power of desire, into the tribulation cloud. The power of desire, that power of desire was emitted from the demonic tribulation and intertwined with the countless thunderbolts in the tribulation cloud. The power of desire, the demonic tribulation, which interred with the countless thunderbolts to in fact. Moreover, Tion was currently creating the demon meridian, which was the time to continuously absorb the power of desire. Following this pulling force, the power of desire naturally surged into his body like a lost lamb that had found its home. This kind of influx was simply unstoppable. In just an instant, Tion could clearly feel the massive power of desire. It could definitely drown him in an instant. 7 sins demonic zither devour this power of desire. Without any hesitation, the 7 sins demonic zither, which was floating in the demon residence, immediately emitted a layer of demonic jade light. Within this jade light, a tyrannical, devouring power burst forth without any warning. It appeared in his entire body and quickly devoured the huge power of desire into the zither. The 7 sins demonic zither itself relied on devouring the power of desire to advance and evolve. It was the best target to use to devour the power of desire. Not only could it absorb the power of desire from the body, but could also help the zither accumulate the power needed to advance to a magic weapon. I have to shape the demon meridian as soon as possible. Such a huge power of desire suddenly appeared. Could it be that something happened outside? I have to quickly pass the demon tribulation, condense the night in, and go out to kill the female cultivator who kidnapped my mother. This time, I must not let the enemy leave unscathed. Tion took a deep breath and focused all his attention on shaping the demon meridian. With the help of the seven sins demonic zither to absorb the power of desire that was constantly pouring into his body, it finally reached a balance in the power of desire in his body. Without hesitation, he quickly extracted the power of joy from the power of desire. It began to fuse with the demon meridian. Shaping the demon meridian was actually not difficult. He had already experienced it twice before, so shaping it again was a walk in the park. He continued to refine the power of joy together with the meridian, quickly fusing them together. Last time, the second demon meridian shaped a front claw. This time, it was the demon meridian in the second front claw. He skillfully shaped the third demon meridian and replaced it on the left tiger claw, connecting it with the other two demon meridian. Almost as soon as the demon meridian was shaped in his body, there was a sudden surge of endless joy in his body and quickly swept into his mind. He couldn't help but have a feeling of wanting to laugh wildly. This was an involuntary action. He didn't have this kind of joy, but he just wanted to open his mouth and laugh in that inexplicable, powerful joy. That kind of strange feeling was absolutely difficult to describe. However, the good thing was that just as the happiness demonic vein was about to erupt, the sadness and the sorrow demonic vein that was originally created was also released by Sakura at the same time. The sadness immediately intertwined with the happiness demonic vein, conflicting with each other, and forcibly maintained a strange balance in his body, causing his mind to temporarily not be affected by it. This could be said to be unusually easy compared to before. However, Tion didn't have the slightest joy in his heart. His heart suddenly thumped, and an indescribable bitterness suddenly emerged. Ding dong! In the demon mansion, the 9 strings of the 7 sins demonic zither vibrated at the same time, and the whole jade zither quickly appeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. These black lines densely covered the entire body of the zither in an instant, and in one fell swoop, the originally white jade zither was instantly dyed black. At this moment, even ordinary people could feel an incomparably powerful demonic aura in the zither, which seemed abnormally evil and strange. And at the moment when the zither's body completely turned black, the strings on the zither vibrated, and there was no longer a trace of the power of desire rushing into the zither. It seemed that the zither could no longer contain any more power of desire. The 7 sins demonic zither has been filled with the power of desire. He smiled bitterly in his heart. The fact that the jade zither had completely turned black meant that the ancient zither was about to begin its transformation and evolution, and could no longer contain any more power of desire. It had to wait for the ancient zither to transform from a supreme grade instrument to a lower grade instrument in one fell swoop before the jade zither could continue to absorb the power of desire. At that time, the amount of power of desire that the ancient zither could absorb would be even greater, increasing exponentially. Thinking about it, it had been almost 2 years since the 7 sins demonic zither was refined. In this period of time, it had been absorbing the power of desire between the heavens and the earth at all times. Day after day, year after year, the amount of power of desire accumulated in the zither had reached an unimaginable level. And now, the 100 Desires demonic orb was surging with the purest power of desire between the heavens and the earth, endlessly flowing into the ancient zither. The amount was so great that even the ancient zither could not completely contain it. For example, if the 7 sins demonic zither had 100 Desires demonic orb beside it when it was first refined, and all the power of desire from the demonic orb was poured into the ancient zither, then the ancient zither would become pitch black. But now, the ancient zither had absorbed the power of desire on its own for 2 years, and then began to absorb the power of desire from the 100 Desires demonic orb. Naturally, It could not completely devour the power of desire from the demonic orb. It had only devoured about 2/3 of it. There was still a third that had not been absorbed. Although it was only a third, the amount of power of desire it contained was unimaginable. Rumble. Countless bolts of lightning wildly rampaged outside of his body, continuously surging into D. Shirtian's body, accompanied by endless power of desire. In the blink of an eye, the demonic veins in his body were filled with power of desire. The power of desire was not absorbed by the seven sins demonic zither and immediately surged into the demonic abode. It quickly entered the black cloud of desire, which grew bigger and bigger, rapidly expanding. In a short moment, it had filled more than half of the demonic abode. If this continued, it would not be long before the entire demonic abode was destroyed by the power of desire. Once the demonic abode collapsed, it would be equivalent to completely destroying one's own foundation. Even the demonic body would explode and turn into dust. Who is trying to harm me? How could they get such a huge amount of power of desire? What should I do now? What should I do to resolve this crisis? In this desperate moment, D. Shirtian's mind was working at an unprecedented speed. Countless ideas flashed through his mind, and various feasible methods emerged. However, they were all rejected in an instant. The more dangerous the situation was, the calmer his mind became. He was in an inconceivable situation. Quick, quick, quick! He crazily screamed in his heart as he quickly thought of a solution. However, the power of desire was the most difficult power to control in the world. He knew that only the seven sins demonic zither could absorb and contain the power of desire. But now, the seven sins demonic zither had reached its limit at this critical moment. This almost instantly cut off all his chances of survival. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 258. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? All kinds of ideas kept replaying in his mind, but they were all rejected in an instant. The power of desire, crazily surging into his body, was practically driving him crazy. Every increase in the power of desire was tantamount to pushing him closer to death. In the blink of an eye, the desire clouds in his body had filled up 2/3 of the space in the demon palace. At this critical juncture, a flash of inspiration quickly flashed through his mind, and he instantly caught hold of this inspiration. Thinking about it in his mind, he was about to give up completely on the spot. However, seeing the power of desire crazily surging into his body, a crazy idea suddenly emerged in his mind. Anyway, I've already come to this point. If I continue, I'll definitely not be able to escape death. Although this method is extremely dangerous, it's still a feasible method. If I die, then so be it. Today, before I die, I'll give it my all. Whether I live or die, it'll all depend on the will of the heavens. His eyes, which had been closed all this while, suddenly opened. In his eyes, one could see a trace of complete madness. He had reached the point of desperation. Whether he advanced or not, he would still die. If he went all out, there might be a chance of survival. At this time, there was no other choice. If I don't go crazy, I won't live. No matter who wants to harm me, as long as I don't die this time, when I get out, I'll definitely settle this score. Let the power of desire come more fiercely. D. Shirtian screamed crazily in his heart, and his entire mind instantly entered a state of madness. Madness, at this moment, he could not go crazy even if he wanted to. In the demon palace, the demon refining cauldron was operating crazily. With a single thought, wave after wave of desire energy was crazily poured into the cauldron. At the same time, clumps of blood essence continuously flowed into the demon palace through the demon vein and quickly entered the cauldron, rushing into the boundless power of desire. It constantly churned inside and began to be refined. With a cry of pain, 2 meridians were forcefully pulled out of his body and sent into the demon palace, and quickly followed into the demon refining cauldron, fusing with the blood essence and the power of desire. He was going to form a demonic vein. That's right. He was going to form another demonic vein. The one he had just formed was the third one. This time, he was going to form the fourth, fifth, and even the 13th. He had only formed the third demonic vein, but he had already started to form other demonic veins. This idea was crazy and unimaginable. It was absolutely unprecedented since ancient times. Even among the ancient demonic cultivators, there had never been such a crazy move. It had to be known that although all ancient Yao cultivators walked the path of forming Yao veins, they would only begin to form Yao veins every time they broke through. That way, they would be able to grasp the power in their body step by step. An additional Yao vein meant that the power in their body would instantly take a huge step forward. This way, one would have absolute control over one's own power, and one's foundation would be abnormally firm. It would have extraordinary benefits when one reached the peak. If Gao Weiyuan wanted to form other demon veins, regardless of whether he could succeed, even if he did, it might not necessarily be a good thing. Whether he could grasp the heterogeneous power in his body was not necessarily a good thing. An additional demon vein meant that the speed at which one could absorb the power in the world would increase by a level. For example, the demon veins formed in the celestial demon slaying technique were formed from massacre chi. Originally, a realm could form the same number of demon veins as one's realm. If there were more, the speed at which one could absorb massacre chi would indeed increase. However, this increase in speed would result in the absorption of massacre chi exceeding the amount that one could refine. Once one lost control, it would result in incalculable damage to one's body. It was like a child holding a sword that only an adult could wield. The consequences of that were obvious. One would only end up hurting oneself. It was like a newborn baby trying to run before learning how to walk. It would be strange if one did not fall. And the consequences of forming more demon veins were many times more serious than falling down. The final solution that flashed through Di Shitian's mind was to continue forming demon veins. Furthermore, it was not just one or two, but a total of 13 demon veins of 7 emotions and 6 desires within his body. At the same time, he would refine the immense power of desire that filled his body into these demon veins, allowing the explosive power of desire within his body to be completely released. It would resolve the urgent situation before him. As for the consequences, Di Shitian had long thought about it. The power of desire contained the 7 emotions and 6 desires. There were 13 types of power of desire. If it were to explode, it would definitely cause him to enter the land of eternal damnation, and he would never be able to transcend. The consequences would be unimaginably severe. It would be thousands of times more tragic than death. Perhaps, by doing so, he would be able to push back the time of his death for a period of time. But he would still not be able to escape the fate of death. However, there was still a glimmer of hope. If he did not do so, the power of desire within his body would definitely mercilessly explode his entire demon body into thousands of pieces. In a lightning, he would be reduced to dust. He would have to form all the demon veins at the cultivation level equivalent to condensing the inner core. It had to be said that this was an unprecedented act of madness. But it was the only choice now. Let's go all out. A crazed thought surged in his heart as he clenched his teeth, stubbornly resisting the terrifying pain of countless bolts of lightning gnawing at his body. At the same time, he continuously extracted wave after wave of pure essence blood from his body and sent it into the demon dwelling, for the purpose of forming demon veins. Once this action started, it was indeed effective. The power of desire that filled the demon residence immediately surged into the cauldron in an endless stream, no longer spreading in all directions. For a moment, the crisis of death seemed to have been temporarily alleviated. However, one could imagine that an even greater crisis was brewing. But it was caused by Di Shitian himself. The method of forming demon veins. In the cauldron, the power of desire was constantly being compressed into a liquid black liquid. This liquid was not the same. It was not gathered together, but divided into 10 equal portions of liquid. These were the 10 types of power of desire. 3 of them were abandoned outside the cauldron and were not absorbed in. They were the 3 types of power of desire of joy, sorrow, and taste. That was because these 3 types of power had already formed demon veins. There was no use in entering. These 10 liquids merged with the blood essence and were constantly being refined, refining all the impurities. At the same time, there was an endless stream of power of desire pouring in. These 10 liquids were the 10 demon veins that were about to be formed, forming 10 demon veins at once. This action could be said to be something that had never been done since ancient times. Today, I'll go crazy and see if I live or die. If there's no path ahead, I'll personally open a path. Tion secretly made up his mind. Although he knew that this was a matter of life and death, he had to go. Once he made the choice, there was no room for regret. In this world, there were all kinds of medicine, but there was no medicine for regret. He was not the kind of person who hesitated. It was fine if he did not make up his mind, but once he made up his mind, he would not think about regret. The only thing he could do was to walk forward unswervingly. If there was no path ahead, he would open a path. In this world, there was always a way out. Within the thunderclouds, the boundless power of desire rushed towards Tion. 2/3 of the power in the 100 Desire demonic orb was first absorbed by the 7 sins demonic zither, and now was being absorbed by Tion. On the spot, the power of desire in the surroundings was decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Crack! Countless cracks appeared on the surface of the 100 Desires devil pearl. Then, it quickly shattered and turned into dust by the lightning. Not even a speck of dust could be found. The scene was truly terrifying. The 100 Desires demon orb has the power to make millions of people fall into a state of lust. How could it disappear so quickly? Impossible. Even the lightning tribulation wouldn't be able to destroy such a pure power of lust. What's going on? Could it be that Junior? All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in fact, only a few breaths had passed. However, the boundless power of desire in the demonic orb had strangely disappeared. Although True Lord Ku Rong originally wanted to use the power of desire to cause Tion to explode and cause his mind to fall into a boundless sea of desire, he did not expect that the power in the demonic orb would disappear so quickly. This was definitely not normal. Moreover, the tribulation clouds had not disappeared yet. This was Tion's demon tribulation. If Tion had really died, the tribulation clouds would naturally disappear as well. It would not be like now, where it was still hanging over the valley. It was really strange. This also meant that Tion was definitely not dead yet. He was still alive. With so much power of desire, he still could not kill Tion. This conclusion made True Lord Ku Rong's eyes flash with a strange look. Could it be that this Junior has some treasure that can counter the power of desire? With this thought, a thought took root in his mind. He secretly guessed, that must be it. Otherwise, how could this Junior cultivate the demonic meridian of desire without any accident or losing his mind? There must be something strange about him. Otherwise, he must have some magical treasure. Countless thoughts ran through his mind in an instant. Tion, hang in there. You must hang in there. Nothing must happen to you. Chunshi believes that you won't be defeated so easily given your boldness in composing that killer song. Chunshi also looked at the tribulation clouds nervously, afraid that they would suddenly disappear. As long as the tribulation clouds did not disappear, there was still hope and a chance of survival. Chapter 259. Bang! An unknown amount of time passed. It could have been an instant, a quarter of an hour, or 10 days, or half a month. Suddenly, a terrifying roar erupted from the tribulation cloud. A powerful wave of air rushed through the entire tribulation cloud at an unprecedented speed. The lightning in the tribulation cloud faintly showed signs of going out of control. Bolts of golden lightning frantically shot out from the tribulation cloud in all directions. Rumble. Under the influence of the qi, bolts of golden, heavenly lightning struck down from above Chun Shi and true Lord Ku Rong's heads in a frenzy. As they raged, they covered the entire valley. The thunderbolts were the tribulation thunderbolts that were created by the universe. They were so powerful that ordinary thunderbolts could not compare to them. However, after all, it was not a thunder tribulation that was specially brewed, so it was not necessarily unstoppable. When Chun Shi saw this, a hint of joy flashed in her eyes. She threw the flower basket in her hand above her head. The flower basket spun gently, bursting out a 7-color divine light, which attracted all the nearby divine thunder into the flower basket. It was just right to refine them into bundles of flowers for her own use. At the same time, she thought to herself, this roar should be the sound of Sher Tion breaking up his physical body. It seems that he really isn't affected by the power of desire in the 100 Desires demonic orb. Next, it's up to him to condense his inner core. The most painful and difficult part of the tribulation was to be consumed by lightning. Now that he's made it through and condensed his inner core, there shouldn't be any problems. She was secretly delighted. She had been through this before, and she also had the inheritance of the fairy of 100 flowers. This wasn't something that Di Shirtian's bloodline inheritance could compare to. A bloodline inheritance only inherited a portion of the techniques and information bestowed upon the inheritor. Not only was it the basics, but what one truly received wasn't much. However, Chun Shi's inheritance was complete, and he had inherited almost all of the fairy of 100 Flowers memories. Naturally, he understood what the tribulation cloud's sudden rampage meant. Damn, brat, could it be that he really has such luck? A cold glint flashed in true Lord Ku Rong's eyes. He wanted to destroy the tribulation cloud, but the tribulation cloud was different from other things. With his current strength, he could not do anything to Sakura, who was inside, so he could only watch the change in front of him. Boom, boom, boom. A huge hole seemed to have appeared in the sky. A vortex suddenly appeared in the sky above the tribulation clouds. The vortex was black, and in the void that was originally empty, countless strands of black qi strangely appeared. These strands of black qi seemed to contain endless evil as they appeared out of thin air. In an instant, they surged in from all directions and rushed into the vortex. This was a vortex of desire. The power of desire gathered in the vortex could be said to be vast amounts and poured into the tribulation clouds. Heaven and earth were like a funnel, and below the funnel was the tribulation clouds. Countless tiny pieces of flesh filled every inch of the tribulation clouds. These blood essences were constantly devouring the surrounding lightning and the power of creation in the lightning. Every drop of blood essence was quickly turning into a divine light, and the essence was spreading in all directions. It was as if they were filled with power in an instant. It was as if they were undergoing a sublime transformation. Boom! These blood essences were all Sakura's flesh and blood. In the place where he originally stood, there was only a blood-colored heart that was still beating powerfully as usual. Every time it beat, countless bolts of lightning would be devoured by the heart. The beating sound was abnormally powerful. After an unknown amount of time, when all the blood essences that were spread out were completely devoured by the lightning, there was a loud bang. Suddenly, all the blood essences that were spread out in all directions rushed toward the heart at the same time, like swallows returning to their nest, and instantly gathered there. Under the miraculous power of creation that the blood essences absorbed, when the blood essences gathered together, all the blood essences immediately seemed to have a life of their own. They continued to condense and churn rapidly. In the blink of an eye, a huge black demon tiger was reborn just like that. Its body was abnormally huge, like a huge mountain, and it stood in the tribulation clouds. It immediately began to swell violently, as if it had gone crazy. Countless black hairs on its body burst out with a black demonic light that flowed continuously. Its entire body seemed to be covered in a divine light. When the surrounding lightning struck its body, It did not damage the reborn demon body. Instead, it continuously flowed into the body through the countless pores on its body. In the body, starting from the heart, there were a total of 13 translucent meridians. They were like channels in the body that ran through every part of the body. They formed a complete meridian diagram. 2 front paws, 2 back paws, each meridian connected to the 5 viscera and 6 bowels. The blood essence in the body flowed continuously along the meridians. 365 meridians were distributed to every corner of the body according to the number of cycles in the sky. All the meridians emitted a bright divine light that made the blood and flesh in the body shine with divine light. It was as if it had been completely divinized. All the bones in the body went from being shattered to being reassembled. It could be said that it had undergone a complete metamorphosis. At this moment, the surface of the bones, which were already abnormally hard, began to faintly emit a jade-like divine light. It was just like the indestructible skeleton that he found in the withered bone wilderness that was almost impossible to destroy. Of course, it had not reached that level of strength now. It was only the surface that had begun to transform, but it had already made the bones in the body stronger than before. The power of creation absorbed from the tribulation clouds continued to pour into the bones in the body, slowly causing the bones to transform. They became even stronger. The 13 demonic veins represented all the desires of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Once the formation was formed, it immediately produced an incomparably huge attractive force that attracted the power of desire in the world. It directly formed a vortex of desire in the sky above the tribulation clouds. A huge amount of power of desire endlessly gushed into the body from every pore in the body. In the past, only the demonic veins that had been formed could be absorbed. However, now that all the demonic veins had been formed and connected to the body, it immediately caused a strange change to the body. Every inch of the skin and every pore could absorb the power of desire in the world without any hindrance. It entered the body and the demonic abode. At this moment, the demonic abode also underwent a huge change. Its area had expanded by at least 10 times compared to before. Its area was even wider and could accommodate even more demonic chi and power of desire. However, these power of desire all gushed into the demon refining cauldron. The liquid that was originally filled with the cauldron had strangely disappeared. Instead, a bead the size of a soybean appeared in front of the eyes. This bead was incomparably pure black in color, and light constantly circulated on its surface. Inner elixir. This was the inner elixir condensed by the demon clan. The liquid had been compressed and refined countless times, but in the end, this inner elixir was the size of a soybean. Although it was not big, the demonic chi in this inner elixir was the purest. Compared to the inner elixir condensed by an ordinary demon clan, even if it was the size of a longan, it might not be as large as the demonic chi in this inner elixir. This was because Di-Shir-Tion possessed the heaven-grade demonic abode and the demon refining cauldron, which could refine all the impurities in the demonic chi at any time and maintain its incomparable purity. During the condensation of the inner core, the demonic chi was compressed endlessly until it could no longer be compressed. This resulted in the inner core that was only the size of a soybean. In fact, when the inner core was first formed, it was only the size of a pearl that was as thick as a thumb. However, it was forcefully compressed into its current state. The inner core in the cauldron was surrounded by a layer of black fog. This black fog was the boundless power of desire. This power of desire faintly had the tendency to fuse with the inner core. However, it was as if there was a natural barrier separating them, and there was no way for them to truly fuse. The power of desire was still the power of desire, and the demonic chi was still the demonic chi. The enormous power of desire was constantly being refined by the demon refining cauldron. The black fog condensed into a black liquid that fell into the cauldron. The inner core slowly rotated. Suddenly, a wave of pitch-black demonic chi was spat out from the demonic abode continuously. It rushed out of the demonic abode and surged into the 13 demonic veins in his body. The demonic chi circulated rapidly. Everywhere the demonic chi reached, the meridians in his body would shine brightly. Every inch of his flesh was jumping with joy. Roar! The tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. In an instant, 2 threatening rays of light shot out from his eyes and into the tribulation clouds. The tribulation clouds rolled violently and were forced to retreat by the divine light. The imperial mark on his forehead flashed wildly. Suddenly, the blood plate opened its mouth and let out a tiger's roar. It sucked fiercely in front of it. Crash! Suddenly, the wind and clouds changed. The tribulation clouds were sucked into the blood plate's mouth at a terrifying speed. The huge tribulation clouds were disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, the blood plate's body became a bottomless pit, swallowing the massive amount of power of desire into its body. For a moment, the space shook violently, reverberating with terrifying roars. The sound of the wind, the sound of thunder, it never stopped. Large patches of tribulation clouds disappeared into its mouth. In the blink of an eye, it was completely swallowed. The huge demonic abode stood in the void, directly in the middle of the vortex. Boom, boom, boom! Countless black demon chi spurted out from his body. In this huge amount of demon chi, the Sakra's demon body shrunk at an incredible speed. At the same time, his entire appearance also changed. His 2 hind claws turned into 2 sturdy thighs, his 2 claws turned into 2 arms, and his head also turned into a human's. His long black hair danced wildly in the wind, setting off a different kind of arrogance. Waves of domineering and intimidating aura, as well as the aura of supremacy, also spread out in all directions without any concealment. It's not that I can't speed up the plot, it's just that once the plot develops too quickly, there will be situations where it goes out of control, which will affect the direction of the plot and the overall development of the main storyline. Just like the previous books, there have been situations where I lost control of the plot. So this time, I'm resolutely going down the slow path. In the book, the people who should die will definitely die, and if they don't die, it's just that it's not time for them to die yet. Rest assured, the past few days have been a big turning point in the plot. Even now, I feel like I'm writing too quickly, and I haven't reached the goal in my heart. Hee, I won't say too much, but thank you to those who voted and tipped. I'll remember all of that in my heart, and I won't forget it. To be continued. If you want to know the future, go to www.chidian.com, and there are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 260. He was dressed in a long black robe, and he held the tiger's soul diagonally below his finger. His eyes were slightly closed, and waves of surging and vigorous aura quickly spread out in all directions like a tide. Wherever it went, strange ripples would faintly appear in the air. Countless flowers, plants, and trees in the valley bent down at the same time. The purple king mark on his forehead looked even more mysterious. His entire body was enveloped in a purple light, and his black robe fluttered without any wind. His black hair fluttered wildly behind his head. Combined with his aura, he looked even more insolent. His boundless aura surged towards the heavens and the earth. This was the domineering aura of a king who reigned supreme. The moment his inner core was condensed, he finally completely sublimated and rose to an unprecedented height. Almost in the blink of an eye, he rushed out of the Centauria Valley and the nearby area, covering a huge area of thousands of kilometers. All living beings in this area involuntarily had the thought of submitting to him. It was a kind of worship toward a natural king. It was a kind of joy toward the birth of a king, and it was natural to submit to him. Roar, howl, all kinds of cries sounded in the mountain forest. Countless living beings prostrated on the ground and looked in the direction of the Centauria Valley with pious gazes. Hundreds of beasts roared in unison, shaking the southern wilderness. This aura, how can it be this kind of aura? He actually has this kind of domineering aura and power? That's impossible. Even if he passed the monster tribulation and condensed his inner core, it's impossible for him to have such a powerful aura that even suppresses me. Perfected Lord Ku Rong looked at Di Shirtian, who was constantly devouring the power of desire in the sky. He was in the vortex with the tiger soul in his hand, and he looked like a living demon that had been reborn. Wave after wave of boundless aura was like a mountain. It was suppressed in the area covered by the aura. Perfected Lord Ku Rong could clearly feel that as the power of desire surged in, Di Shirtian's aura was rising crazily almost all the time. It was as if there was no limit to it, and it was increasing its power without limit. Between the heavens and the earth, who knew how long the power of desire had accumulated over the years? Seeing him was like a residence that could accommodate them. It was like a bottomless pit. Naturally, the energy kept pouring into his body. True monarch Ku Rong, if you want to harm me, then take my saber, death of gods and devils. His eyes suddenly opened and shot out two beams of divine light. The divine light seemed to contain an unimaginably terrifying power. With just a slight touch, it could bewitch a person's mind and make their mind unconsciously waver. Countless desires arose. The divine light in his eyes was actually multicolored. All sorts of emotions and desires were entangled in his eyes, constantly alternating with each other. It was very strange. It made people unconsciously sink into it. It was terrifying. When he spoke, his tone seemed to contain an endless amount of coldness. It seemed like a normal sentence, but when he spat it out, it caused a terrifying chill to appear in the air around him. It spread out, and no matter how high his cultivation base was, he would not be able to withstand it. He could not help but feel a chill in his body. The moment he opened his eyes, he turned the tiger soul in his hand and stabbed the saber into the terrifying vortex outside his body. Instantly, countless pitch-black power of desire poured into the tiger soul. Once it was poured in, the tiger soul immediately emitted a golden saber light that was tens of thousands of feet long. Waves of powerful energy were condensing in the saber. Roar! The saber kept humming softly, and there was a faint tiger roar coming from it. It seemed unusually domineering. Standing alone in the void with the tiger soul, his entire body was like a peerless demon that dominated heaven and earth. The vast and mighty aura contained an endless amount of pressure. At this moment, there was only true Lord Ku Rong in his eyes. Shirtian, you must be careful. If I'm not mistaken, this true Lord Ku Rong should be a powerhouse who has been cultivating since ancient times. He's injured and his strength has been greatly reduced, but his body is extremely tough, and his various divine abilities and secret skills are extremely impressive. Chen Shi saw Di Shirtian's powerful appearance. Although he was delighted, he still could not help but remind him. Kill! Di Shirtian did not hesitate at all. His eyes suddenly focused, and he strangely withdrew all the power in his body in an instant and applied it to the tiger soul. He shouted coldly, and the demonic vitality in his body circulated quickly. A terrifying saber light that was tens of feet long shot out from the tiger soul saber, and countless figures of gods and demons appeared in the saber. Clang! With a flick of his wrist, the tiger soul immediately followed the trajectory of heaven and earth and slashed at true Lord Ku Rong. Once the saber was out, the gods and demons that were flickering in the saber seemed to have been resurrected. They rushed out of the tiger's soul like lightning, holding the same saber in their hands. Every demon god's figure was different. It was as if they were all living beings. Thousands of gods and demons flew out. These gods and demons danced around the tiger's soul, completely covering the space under the saber. The sabers in their hands were slashed out immediately, and every slash followed the trajectory of heaven and earth. When they were slashed out, not only did the saber contain the power of gods and demons, but it also contained the power of heaven and earth. Even if it slashed a mountain peak, it would be split in half. When the saber was slashed out, the space covered by the gods and demons under the tiger soul seemed to be completely confined, and everything was shrouded under the endless power of the gods and demons. It was as if this saber was going to destroy heaven and earth. This saber was going to cut through the firmament. The power was so great that it was as if one was in the sky and the other was on the ground before the breakthrough. There was a fundamental upgrade. What kind of combat skill is this? It can actually form gods and demons. These gods and demons are all real. How can a junior like you master such a powerful combat skill? True Lord Ku Rong had already lost count of the number of times he had been surprised today. Sakura's body had subverted his common sense almost all the time. When he looked at the terrifying fiend god Sorrow again, he realized that the power contained within it truly possessed a mighty power that could make even fiend gods die. Under the combat skill, his eyebrows were twitching wildly. An unprecedented sense of crisis emerged in his heart. He could vaguely feel that this war of the gods and demons had a terrifying power that could completely kill him. It could make him completely annihilate. Without thinking, his mind moved. Countless long vines grew rapidly from the ground and became extremely slender. In an instant, they weaved a barrier made of ancient vines around him. It blocked above his head. With a flash of light in his hand, a withered yellow bell appeared above his head. There were countless flowers and trees on the surface of the bell. The influence of these flowers and trees appeared on the bell and quickly formed a scene of alternating withering and flourishing. The bell contained the true meaning of withering and flourishing with each passing year. Those who looked at it could not help but feel like they were completely immersed in it. The material of the bell was also very strange. It was not made of any metal, but of various spiritual wood. Strictly speaking, this bell could be considered a wooden bell. There were also countless runes flowing on it. How? Countless gods and demons rushed over and slashed at the countless ancient vines. The toughness of the ancient vines was definitely not inferior to that of 10,000-year-old vines. Even ordinary magic treasures might not be able to cut them easily. However, at this moment, facing countless gods and demons who were brandishing their sabers, each of them could be said to have infinite power. It was comparable to the full power attack of a nascent soul realm cultivator. Now, there were thousands of gods and demons, which was almost equivalent to thousands of nascent soul realm cultivators attacking at the same time. The power was so strong that even cultivators above the nascent soul realm, even those who were at the peak of the human world, would definitely be cut into thousands of pieces if they were to face it head-on. The barrier woven by the ancient vines did not have the ability to block it all. Under the sharp light of the countless sabers, it was completely cut into thousands of pieces and broke apart. Although the ancient vines had amazing vitality and could be regenerated after being cut, they no longer had the ability to block the sharp light of the saber. In the blink of an eye, they appeared above true Lord Ku Rong. He could vaguely feel the sharpness of the tiger's soul and the mighty fiend god Chi of the demon gods. It was as if the sky above his head had completely collapsed. A mighty force that was like a mountain and a prison was exerted on his body. It caused his expressionless face to become abnormally ugly. There was a faint look of fear in his eyes. Bell of reincarnation, withering and flourishing with each passing year. Perfected Lord Ku Rong hollered to boost his courage. With a single thought, he saw the ancient wooden bell above his head vibrate all of a sudden. Dong! An ancient bell rang from the ancient bell. As soon as the bell rang, circles of sound waves immediately spread out in all directions like a tide. Wherever they passed, the space was first distorted before it completely collapsed and was completely destroyed. The sound waves spread out in all directions, and the countless precious flowers in the valley were all turned into dust as if they were blown by a strong wind. The valley shook violently as if there was an earthquake. At the same time, the ancient bell emitted wisps of divine light. In the light, countless flowers and trees emerged at the same time and appeared above his head. These flowers and trees all emerged from a bell. It had to be said that this ancient bell was definitely a rare treasure. When the bell rang, it shook the void. Countless gods and demons rushed over and bore the brunt of the attack. They were crushed into dust on the spot. In an instant, hundreds of gods and demons were annihilated. However, the remaining gods and demons did not hesitate at all. Their battle sabers followed the trajectory of heaven and earth and slashed down sharply on the ancient bell. At the same time, the most powerful slash was the one made by the tiger soul itself. The golden saber light was hundreds of feet long. It really shook heaven and earth. It was filled with endless power of desire, one's own demon primordial energy, and even an endless aura. It was all gathered in this slash. Clang! Without any surprise, Tiger Soul mercilessly hacked at the ancient bell. Immediately, the boundless might within the blade caused the ancient bell to shake violently, emitting a series of bell chimes. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 261. The bell rang. The surrounding void began to distort and collapse at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it turned into countless spatial turbulences that erupted with a terrifying destructive force. The tiger's soul slashed the ancient bell heavily with its saber. Waves of sharp saber chi poured out and struck the ancient bell, causing it to ring continuously. The sound of the bell was like the morning bell in an ancient temple. It was quiet and ethereal, but it contained a power that could bring vitality to all things. Countless gods and demons slashed down with their sabers, but they were completely blocked by the countless flowers and trees that burst forth from the ancient bell. Immediately, the countless flowers and trees that burst forth from the surface of the ancient bell were cut into pieces, creating a mess. The simultaneous attack of thousands of gods and demons was equivalent to saying that the ancient bell had suffered a full blow from thousands of nascent soul cultivators in a short period of time. Its power was so great that it was almost impossible to estimate. Although the ancient bell was indeed a treasure with boundless power, at that moment, the power that true Lord Ku Rong could unleash was extremely limited, and it was impossible for him to unleash its full power. Under the protection of the ancient bell, his stiff face suddenly turned pale. His body trembled violently as if he had been struck by lightning. It was as if he had suffered countless heavy blows in an instant. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood like a sharp arrow. It landed on the ground and pierced a hole of unknown depth. There was an indescribable expression in his eyes. Perfected Lord Ku Rong glared at Di Shirtian fiercely. He opened his mouth and spat out another mouthful of blood essence. However, this time, he did not spit on the ground, but on the ancient bell above his head. The moment the blood essence landed on the ancient bell, it was immediately absorbed by the bell. For a moment, the surface of the ancient bell burst forth with a layer of golden divine light that shone brightly. A tyrannical force erupted from the ancient bell. Clang! The ancient bell vibrated violently. The golden divine light on the ancient bell suddenly expanded outward and expanded. An immeasurable force erupted in an instant and actually repelled the tiger soul on the ancient bell. Bang! Di Shirtian could only feel a terrifying force that he had never felt before coming from the tiger soul in his hand. This force contained boundless vitality and caused the tiger soul to collapse at once. However, Sakura did not hesitate as he shouted. From the vortex formed by the power of desire beside him, waves of power of desire crazily poured into Tiger Soul in an unending stream. The Tiger Soul burst forth with incomparably dazzling saber light again. Following the momentum of the collapse, the saber turned into a slanted slash and slashed down. Clang! Puffed! Perfected Lord Ku Rong spat out another mouthful of blood essence. A hint of viciousness flashed in his eyes as he pointed the withered glory staff in his hand in front of him. In an instant, the ground surged and a sapling emerged. The sapling grew from a small sapling into a towering tree in front of him in an instant. He glared fiercely at Di Shirtian and said resentfully, Di Shirtian, I'll remember you. I'll settle this debt with you sooner or later. You want to kill me? Even that old fart know-it-all couldn't kill me back then. You're not worthy. As he spoke, his body crashed into the tree in front of him. Strangely enough, once his body came into contact with the tree, it was like a drop of water touching the ocean. His entire body strangely sank into the tree without a sound. Bang! Just as he entered the tree, the tiger soul had already appeared in front of the tree and easily split the extremely thick tree into two. After splitting the tree, perfected Lord Kurong's figure was nowhere to be seen. It was as if he had vanished without a trace in an instant. It was truly strange. He would divine escape. When Shanxi saw this from the side, he could not help but frown slightly and exclaim in surprise. Heaven and earth were made up of yin, yang, and the 5 elements. In ancient times, a great divine power created a 5 elements divine escape technique based on the characteristics of the 5 elements. This escape technique was divided into 5 categories, which were the Yi Wood divine escape, Gung metal divine escape, Li fire divine escape, Wu Tu divine escape, and Yin water divine escape. However, most people called it the wood escape technique, metal escape technique, and so on. There was a difference between the orthodox and the simplified version. The 5 elements divine escape technique that was passed down today was far inferior to the 5 elements divine escape technique from ancient times. This was because the former had great restrictions, and there were many places where it was difficult to escape through. On the other hand, the 5 elements divine escape technique could be used as long as one was in the 5 elements. One escape would allow one to travel thousands of miles. Those with high cultivation could travel tens of thousands of miles or hundreds of thousands of miles in a flash. Chunshi was surprised because he could tell that perfected Lord Kurong was using the legendary Yi Wood divine escape technique that was lost in history. Once his body came into contact with a wood attribute object, he would immediately escape thousands of miles away. It had to be said that an old monster like him who had lived for God knows how many years would have all kinds of secret techniques and divine abilities that were beyond anyone's expectations. Oof. A glint flashed across Di Shirtian's eyes. He knew that with perfected Lord Kurong's ability, there were definitely many ways for him to escape. With all kinds of methods, it would be quite difficult to kill him. At least, there was no such possibility now. Clang! He held Tiger Soul horizontally in his hand and stood in midair. He turned his head abruptly and swept his gaze outside the valley. He saw that the vast sky outside the valley had been completely covered by a huge net. It had bound the entire world. Below, it were the demon kings and other demon beasts of the southern wilderness. They were all trapped inside. Meanwhile, the cultivators who were controlling the net were leisurely outside. They were either shooting out countless sword lights with their flying swords or taking out various Dharma treasures to smash them into the net. All kinds of powerful Dharma spells were constantly stirring up the air, and terrifying rumbles were heard. The talismans that filled the sky flickered with spiritual light and drew on the power of heaven and earth, bursting out all the Dharma spells sealed inside. For a time, the rumbles inside were incessant. Wind blades and fire lights were incessant. At the same time, the furious roars of the Black Ape King and the others shook the surrounding ground nonstop. Despicable and shameless cultivators. Everyone, let's display our abilities together and smash this broken net into pieces. Old Black, don't believe that a mere net can trap us. Waves of Yao Qi surged out from the Black Ape King's body as he roared loudly. That's right. If we don't use our strength, we'll really be looked down upon by this group of cultivators. Even though Medusa was bound in an area by the net, she was still calm and composed. She swept her gaze above her head slightly, revealing an indifferent and disdainful expression. You don't have to do anything. They're all mine. It's just a net. Let's see if it can block the sharpness of my tiger soul. Great! Just as the Demon Kings were about to start using their innate, remarkable abilities, a voice that seemed to be able to freeze the air into ice suddenly came from the void. Looking towards the source of the voice, Sakura soared through the air. He didn't use wind manipulation. Just like that, he stood in the air naturally. Step by step, he stepped in the air. In the air that was originally nothing, strange ripples actually appeared under his feet. With every step he took, the air would vibrate. He took 7 steps in a row and stepped in the air. His body left the valley and appeared outside the valley. His eyes suddenly shrank, turning into narrow slits. Rays of cold light shot out from the slits and instantly landed on Wang Fenger, who was in the lead. Beside her, there was a vermilion bird covered in flames. It was the size of an adult. The temperature around it had reached an astonishing height. Kill! Traces of intense hatred fell on Wang Fenger, and an uncontrollable urge surged in his mind. Kill her! Kill her! She was the one who took Mother. I must kill her. A threatening light shot out, and he unhesitatingly let out a cold shout filled with killing intent. Without hesitation, the tiger soul in his hand chopped down on her head. Rays of light shot out from the saber. An endless saber chi shot out, shaking the void. The moment the saber struck, it was as if the heavens had sent down a heavenly punishment. It was as fast as lightning. A powerful aura pressed down on Wang Fenger's body like a mountain. Vermilion bird. When Wang Fenger saw this, a trace of panic flashed in her heart. However, she still shouted, and the vermilion bird beside her immediately flapped its wings and took flight. Countless feathers flew out from its body and circled around it. Its entire body seemed to have turned into a blazing sun, releasing endless flames. It faced the tiger soul that was descending at lightning speed without any hesitation. It was evolved from a bead and had no will of its own. Whatever Wang Fenger wanted to control, it would do as she wished. Bang! At this moment, the tiger's soul, the current Di Shirtin, was mixed with the might of the heavens and the earth. The strength in his body had reached an unimaginable level. On top of his head, there was a vortex of desire that was continuously channeling the power of desire into his body. With every swing of the saber, the power contained in the saber had reached an inestimable height. The mighty vermilion bird was split into 2 by the tiger soul saber. With a whimper, its entire body disappeared, and a pearl that was split into 2 fell to the ground. Wang Fenger shrieked in shock. Her expression changed drastically, and she threw out all the Dharma treasures in her hands. There were no less than 10 flying swords, spirit talismans, and all kinds of Dharma treasures that were thrown at the tiger soul at the same time. However, at this moment, Sakura Shirtion was invincible. Wherever the tiger soul went, no matter what it was, no matter if it was a magic treasure, a flying sword, or even an earth-shattering spell, under the tiger soul, they were all instantly crushed by the incomparably sharp saber chi. Demon tiger, don't you want to know where your mother is? Just as the tiger soul was about to hit its head, a loud shout was heard. However, the tiger soul only paused for a moment before it immediately slashed down like a bolt of lightning. Clang! The tiger's soul pointed diagonally downward. The clear look in its eyes was gradually devoured by countless desires in a frenzy. Its consciousness seemed too insignificant under the vast and boundless desire. However, even so, the last bit of clarity in its mind was still filled with killing intent. It swept its murderous aura toward the others. Eldest senior sister is dead. Everyone, let's fight it out with him. A cultivator nearby saw how Wang Fenger was split into 2 and the blood essence in her body was completely devoured. His expression was filled with grief and indignation. He moved his hand and was about to release his flying sword. Clack! To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 262. He took a step in the air, and circles of ripples spread out under his feet. Die. He did not even look the other party in the eye. With a flick of his wrist, Tiger Soul swept out in a casual manner. The Tiger Soul's saber gleam, which was several hundred feet long, drew a semicircle in front of him. Countless saber gleams filled the air, and they were so sharp that they could not be matched. Wherever the saber gleams went, nothing could block them. Their flying swords were cut in half, followed by their bodies. The area covered by the saber light was extremely large, and there was no way to avoid it. There were actually 3 cultivators who died to the Tiger Soul, and their blood essence was completely devoured by the Tiger Soul. An extremely dense, murderous aura continuously gathered in his body. Patter. Endless coldness overflowed from his body, and he took another step forward. Every step was as if he was stepping on flat ground, and the sound of his footsteps was powerful. In an instant, he took 2 steps forward and slashed out Tiger Soul again. A vast and boundless aura swept through heaven and earth, and under this aura and the killing power of the saber light, the demonic beasts were slaughtered like pigs. Core formation cultivators were like pigs and sheep in a slaughterhouse. With one slash, he killed them one by one. It was as if he was cutting up melons and vegetables. There was nothing that could stop his sharpness. In the blink of an eye, 8 myriad beast sect disciples fell one after another. Not a single drop of blood was left in their bodies. Break! Tiger's Soul swung out again, and with its sharpness, it broke a huge hole in the incomparably tough net. Although he didn't know what material the net was made of, it couldn't resist the terrifying sharpness of Tiger Soul. In addition, no one was controlling it anymore, so it was cut open on the spot. Ha! The Black Ape King rushed out of the hole and looked at D. Shirtion. He laughed loudly and said, "Brother D, I, Old Black, am impressed by you. You dared to transcend your tribulation at this time, and you even succeeded. You killed the cultivators so cleanly. Impressive, impressive. I can kill 1 or 2 of these cultivators with some time in my life on the line, but it's not as easy as you. My southern wilderness has another powerhouse. It seems that I have to find time to prepare for my tribulation. After so many years, it's time for me to transform. I remember that the heavenly demon mystic realm is very close. Every little bit of strength counts." The Red-Crowned Crane King looked at D. Shirtion and sighed. As a demonic beast king, almost all of them had the ability to transcend their tribulations at any time. It was just that they all wanted to build a more solid foundation. That's right. It's time to transcend the tribulation. Golden Lion King nodded. His voice was very indifferent, but it contained an aura of confidence. The rest of the Monster Kings said at the same time. All of them had the intention to start their tribulations. Shirtion, how are you? Are you hurt? Medusa swept her gaze over Sakura. After Sakura killed all the cultivators who had come to invade with the speed of a thunderbolt, he stood in the air without moving. He held Tiger's Soul tightly in his hand, and a multicolored glow appeared in his eyes. It continuously flickered and flickered. Occasionally, it would be retracted and he would return to his normal state. However, this state only lasted for a few short moments before it was once again replaced by rays of divine light. They intertwined continuously and were completely entangled. In his mind, there were countless voices and all kinds of thoughts spewing out fiercely from the bottom of his heart. Desires, desires, and all kinds of desires. In an instant, it was as if a door of desire had opened in the bottom of his heart. This door had been sealed and could be controlled in the past. However, now that the door was suddenly opened, the various desires hidden in the bottom of his heart were no longer restricted. All kinds of thoughts in the past were expanding and strengthening without limit. Any intelligent creature would have 7 emotions and 6 desires. At this moment, the various desires in D. Shirtion's body expanded without limit and poured into his mind. This time, due to the enormous power of desire, Sakura had no choice but to risk his life and create 13 desire demonic veins. He had completely created all the demonic veins in his body. This action was something that had never happened before since ancient times. However, the danger involved had also reached an inestimable level. Originally, he could create one demon meridian at a time. That way, he could use the time before creating the demon meridians to suppress and familiarize himself with the former power of desire and reduce their influence on his body to the lowest level. He could then use other means to control the influence of those desires, just like what he did before. However, due to perfected Lord Ku Rong's intervention, his plan was ruined on the spot, and he had no choice but to create all the demon meridians. However, once he created the demon meridians, he could still suppress it with his mind that had been tempered over the years and prevent the desires in his body from exploding on the spot. Therefore, when his mind was fighting against the desires, his mind could still remain clear for the time being. That was why he could launch a fierce attack on perfected Lord Ku Rong, Wang Fenger, and the others. He killed the 8 cultivators on the spot with his saber. Once the enemies were dead, the anger in his chest began to dissipate. In addition, the power of desire from the outside world was madly surging into his body almost all the time. When it entered his body, it also brought about the endless desires of all living beings in the world. On the spot, the suppressed desires in his body exploded completely. This time, it wasn't just one kind of desire. Instead, it was the 7 emotions and 6 desires. At the same time, all of them erupted and poured into his mind. How powerful was this power that was mixed with the desires of all living beings in the world? All along, Sakura's state of mind that could be said to be firm and resolute was simply like a broken boat in the vast ocean. Almost in the blink of an eye, it was hit by the surging waves of desire and sank. In his mind, countless desires were intertwined. Seeing Di Shurtian's a completely abnormal situation, Medusa frowned slightly. After all, it was Di Shurtian who killed those cultivators in a domineering manner. Now that he was in trouble, she could not just stand by and watch. She wanted to go over and see what was going on. Medusa, don't touch him. Now that his mind is fighting against his desires, once you touch him and affect him, I'm afraid he'll be consigned to eternal damnation. Just as Medusa's jade-like hand was about to reach out, an elegant voice suddenly stopped her. In the valley, she was walking in the air, quickly approaching Indra. She swept a glance at his body, and when she looked at his eyes, she saw the colors formed when countless desires were entangled with each other. He thought to himself, Di Shurtian has really created the pulse of desire. However, from the looks of it, true Lord Ku Rong's 100 desires demonic or must have had bad effects on him. Desire has always been the most difficult force in the world to understand. Even the fairy's inheritance, it was very feared. Now, I don't know what accident has happened to him. She saw Di Shurtian create the pulse of desire with his own eyes and knew that he cultivated the most mysterious power of desire. Now that there was an accident, the consequences must be quite serious. At the crucial moment, she did not know much about the power of desire, let alone what happened in the tribulation clouds back then. She wanted to help, but there was no way she could. However, in his eyes, he could see the myriad of emotions of life. Endless desires, happiness, anger, sorrow, fear, shock, and so on. They circulated endlessly in his eyes, and each of them had a terrifying state of mind that could cause people to sink into them. Looking at his eyes, even her mind seemed to be affected. Together, she was brought into the terrifying realm of desire. What? How can this be? Medusa and the other monster kings exclaimed in unison. Consort Baiwa, you can't just ignore it. You must save our king. The myriad demon valley can't be without a king. Nothing must happen to the king. Hearing this conclusion, the demonic beast that came with Sakura had a huge change in expression. Bai Susu kowtowed to Chunxi on the spot and begged loudly. Consort Baiwa, please save our king. Chihua, Baiwe, and the others all knelt down. Each of them had different degrees of injuries on their bodies, and blood kept flowing down. However, they did not care at all and just begged desperately. They looked at Chun Shi as if they had seen a life-saving straw. Your king cultivates the power of desire, and Shinshi doesn't understand the power of desire. Right now, there's nothing I can do. Perhaps we can only wait for his mind to overcome his desire. If that happens, he should be able to wake up. Shinshi's words were also filled with a deep sense of powerlessness. Di Shirtian was walking on an unprecedented path, and it would be difficult for outsiders to help him. Unless, at this moment, there was someone who could play a calming divine song, like the heart-cleansing Bodhi song. Perhaps he could still maintain a trace of clarity because of it. However, this time, it was all his desires that had erupted. An ordinary song would probably not have much of an effect. Whoosh! Just as Chun-Shi looked at Di Shirtian again. Suddenly, from Sakura's two eyes, two multicolored, incomparably fantastic divine lights suddenly shot out, instantly covering Chun-Shi in divine light. At the same time, he opened his mouth and spat out a multicolored fog towards her face. Not good. Chun-Shi was standing right in front of Sakura. It could be said that he was close at hand, and when he was sizing him up, he wasn't prepared for such an accident to happen. Under the two divine lights, he instantly felt that his mind was fixed, and all kinds of desires that he had never had before emerged in his mind. After inhaling a mouthful of fog, there was a strange fragrance in the fog. Suddenly, he felt his mind go into a trance. For some reason, an intense heat rose in his body, and his mind was filled with thoughts. There was a kind of uncontrollable desire that surged out like a flood. Pa! At this moment, a strong and powerful arm suddenly wrapped around her waist, and all the strength in her body seemed to disappear without a trace in an instant. Her body became incomparably soft as she was pulled into a heavy embrace. The strong scent of a man wafted in her nostrils. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com to read more chapters. Support the author. Support legal reading. Chapter 263. The sun rose and the moon set. Day and night alternated. This was the law of heaven and earth. It was the foundation of all things reincarnation. In the east, a ray of golden light shot towards heaven and earth, stubbornly dispersing the surrounding darkness. Ray after ray, when countless rays of light shot out, the darkness had already begun to quietly disappear in the blink of an eye. A wisp of purple gas rose from the east. The golden sun shone in the forest and fell on the morning dew between the leaves. The dewdrops blossomed with countless rays of light. It was truly magical and beautiful, causing people to unconsciously feel relaxed and happy. The morning sun always brought that indescribable vitality. It meant that a new day had begun. A new reincarnation had reappeared. All things had begun to glow with vitality. The morning sun shone at the entrance of the cave, bringing a ray of light to the cave. At this moment, in the cave, the red lawn fog that filled the cave last night had completely disappeared and turned into nothingness. In the innermost part of the cave, Chun-Shi, who was dressed in white, opened her eyes and stared at Di Shirtian, who was still lying on the fur and had not regained consciousness. On his body, there was not a single piece of clothing, and he was completely naked. On the fur, an astonishing plum blossom was blooming beautifully. Seeing it, Chun-Shi's eyes were filled with intense hatred. A ray of light flashed in his hand. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged and quickly condensed into a cold and threatening sharp sword. With a twist of his pure wrist, the sword flashed and was about to pierce Di Shirtian's throat. Chi! However, just as the sword was about to pierce into his body, it inexplicably stopped. There was a hint of struggle on his face, which seemed abnormally complicated. This happened again and again, but in the end, he was still unable to withdraw this sword. Di Shirtian, a voice filled with resentment, was softly spat out from her mouth. It could be said that all kinds of feelings gushed out from her heart. The scene yesterday, after waking up, one by one, appeared in her mind. No matter how she imagined, she would never have thought that the pure and clean body she had preserved for countless years would be ruined by Di Shirtian. Thinking about the scene at that time, she still felt like she was in a dream. She actually lost her virginity in such a situation and even let out such a shameful moan. When she woke up and saw that she was entangled with him, that kind of feeling made her have an impulse to kill him on the spot. However, she also knew that the matter at that time was probably not Sakura's original intention. It was also because he lost his mind due to his desire that he did such a thing. It could be said that it was an unintentional act. Thinking back to when she first heard that heroic song, her heart trembled inexplicably. Every time she swung her sword, she was unable to stab into his throat. But what happened last night was enough for her to kill him 100 times over. In particular, after she woke up, she discovered something that filled her heart with a strong sense of hatred. Tion, I know you're awake. Stop pretending. When she swung her sword again, she was unable to land it. A complicated expression appeared on Chun-Shi's face. She did not know why she could not do it. She took a deep breath, and a layer of frost appeared on her face. The aura on his body suddenly became abnormally cold. She said coldly, "Ha ha." Tion laughed bitterly and opened his eyes. With a wave of his hand, he put on a black robe and covered his body. His eyes wandered, not daring to look into Chun-Shi's eyes. He said with a bitter smile, "Why didn't you kill me? You know I won't fight back." Not knowing when, his voice became unusually hoarse. Since Chun-Shi woke up, he woke up as well. However, the scene of last night appeared in his mind, making him feel ashamed to face her again. He could only lie on the spot and pretend to be asleep without moving. He clearly felt that Chun-Shi had swung her sword repeatedly, and he had no intention of stopping it. Thinking of what he did last night, even if his mind was bewitched, he could not deny that the things he did and the mistakes he made him feel ashamed to see Chun-Shi again. Especially after knowing the situation in his body, he smiled bitterly. The debt he owed to Chun-Shi could not be repaid, even with all the water in the river. If Chun-Shi really wanted to kill him, he would not resist at all. Clang! The sword in Chun-Shi's hand, which was condensed from spiritual energy, was stabbed into the ground. She looked coldly at Tion. If one looked closely, one could see a trace of struggle and complexity in her eyes, but it was all hidden under the indifference. She stared at his face for a long time, then heavily spat out a sentence. "From now on, I don't want to see you again." Chun-Shi seemed to be making an incomparably important decision. There wasn't the slightest bit of emotion in her words. It was as if the Sakura in front of her was a stranger that couldn't be any stranger. With a wave of her jade-like hand, the fur on the ground fell into her hand. She then turned around and walked out of the cave. Wait! Just as Chun-Shi turned and walked to the entrance of the cave, Tion took a deep breath and said hoarsely, "The mistake has been made. No matter if you want to kill me or torture me, I will not have the slightest complaint. However, if possible, I hope to take care of you. Give me a chance to make up for this mistake. No matter what, things have already come to this point. I will not shirk the responsibility I have to bear. Even if we do not have feelings for each other, I will pursue you in my own way. I know the day you are willing to forgive me. There is no relationship between us." Chun-Shi coldly spat out these words. Her body flashed, and in the blink of an eye, she left the cave. She did not know where she went, but where she was standing, 2 sparkling drops of water fell from the sky. Pata! The moment they fell to the ground, Tion reached out and grabbed them. Opening his palm, he saw the sparkling drops of water in his hand, and a trace of bitterness uncontrollably welled up in his heart. He took out the god of wine gourd and drank a few mouthfuls. In the past, he drank spiritual wine that had endless flavors. Now, there was only a deep bitterness left in his mouth. When Tion heard the last sentence, a trace of bitterness appeared at the corner of his mouth. He hammered his head hard and sat on the ground. Suddenly, he raised his head and shot 2 hate-filled eyes. "Perfected Lord Ku Rong, I will settle this score with you sooner or later. If I don't kill you, how can the hatred in my heart be eliminated?" Although his mind was lost when his desires erupted yesterday, when he woke up today, Everything that happened yesterday appeared clearly in his mind. Even the day before, when he kidnapped Chun-Shi and did those beastly things to her, were still vivid in his mind. To be honest, he would rather not know anything. Then, he would not have so many troubles now. The source of all of this was true Lord Ku-Rong. If he had not thrown 100 desires demonic pearl into the tribulation cloud, he would not have been forced into a corner and had to take the risk of forming his 7 emotions and 6 desires to form 13 demon veins. If he did not form all the demon veins, that desire would not have erupted, and it would not have invaded his mind. It made him lose his mind, and that was why he did such an irreparable wrong. Chun-Shi, oh, Chun-Shi, I, Di-Shirtian, owe you this time. I'm afraid I won't be able to repay you in my lifetime. Indeed, only he knew how much he owed. If it was an ordinary woman, after yesterday, Di-Shirtian's state of mind still wouldn't have any improvement and would only vent out a kind of desire. However, he was sober and wasn't confused by that boundless desire again. What's more, he didn't sink into that boundless desire again and enter that state of eternal damnation. Why? When he woke up, he realized this strange thing. When he immersed himself into his body to investigate, he felt a deep sense of guilt towards Chun-Shi. He walked the path of ancient demon cultivation. In his body, he formed all the 13 demon veins in one go, forming a complete meridian network diagram in his body. It was also because of these demon veins that the terrifying scene of his mind being eroded by desire occurred. There were all kinds of desires that were almost endless. It was as if he was facing the ocean. Even now, that feeling still caused him to feel lingering fear. Under such circumstances, his mind was still eroded, and there was almost no way to save him. However, in this world, there was always a what-if. Chun-Shi was an exotic flower that evolved from the infinite essence of heaven and earth with infinite creation. It was a divine flower, and its origin contained the true essence of an instant and eternity. An instant and eternity were connected to time. It could be said to be extremely heaven-defying. The essence accumulated in the flower for countless years could be said to be a kind of supreme divine essence. It was a supreme treasure. It was the purest. If he could absorb all of the light of dawn in the future, he would be able to advance by leaps and bounds. In a few hundred years, he would easily reach that inconceivable realm and become an unparalleled expert. He would be able to move unhindered in the purple gold continent. If he absorbed all of the divine essence in it, he would probably be able to increase his cultivation by tens of thousands of years. This could be said to be the most precious thing in Chun-Shi's body. However, just last night, when Chun-Shi had just merged with his original body, he was taken by Di-Shirtian. Therefore, most of the divine essence in his body flowed along with the combination of yin and yang. It automatically operated the dual cultivation method and flowed into Di-Shirtian's body. At that time, when it entered his body, it immediately clashed with the power of desire that filled his body. Naturally, it also felt that something bad was happening in Sakura Heaven's body. This divine splendor immediately erupted with a shocking power, automatically evolving the heaven-defying divine ability, fleeting youth. In one fell swoop, the power of desire in his body was sealed into the demonic veins in his body. A total of 10 veins were sealed, and the connection between the demonic veins and the power of desire between heaven and earth was completely cut off. Only the joy demonic vein, the sorrow demonic vein, and the taste demonic vein were left. The 3 demonic veins were unimpeded. It was as good as new. This seal could be said to have saved Di-Shirtian's life on the spot. The joy and sorrow were entangled and contended with each other. The taste demonic vein could also be controlled, and finally, his mind returned to normal. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support legal reading. Chapter 264. It had to be said that even though he had made a huge mistake this time, his crisis had been completely resolved. Of the 13 demonic veins, 10 had been sealed. In other words, the source of those desires had been sealed. Naturally, the remaining 3 demonic veins would not be able to invade his mind. Only then did he come to his senses. Moreover, the benefits he had gained this time were so great that it was beyond Shurtian's estimation. First, the 13 demonic veins represented the 7 emotions and 6 desires. The 13 desires represented the 13 demonic veins. Now, all of them had been molded in one go and connected to form a complete meridian diagram in his body, which could be circulated to all parts of his body. It could be said to be extremely miraculous. He had accomplished everything in one fell swoop. Although it was true that the demonic veins had been sealed by Chun-Shi's instant youth divine power, it was not a complete seal. It could be opened again. It was like an ordinary person who wanted to cultivate the genuine chi of martial arts. He had to open up the conception and governing vessels from the minor circulation to the major circulation. During this process, he had to use his genuine chi to open up the meridians in his body bit by bit. Every time a meridian was opened up, his genuine chi would increase. If all the meridians in his body were connected together, it would be the innate reversal. Now, Shurtian's meridians had been sealed. However, it was not a complete seal. Instead, he could open up the sealed meridians one by one, just like those Jianghu people in the secular world. Moreover, in these 10 sealed meridians, there was also the massive amount of desire power that he had absorbed before, as well as almost half of the divine power in Chun-Shi's body. Every time a meridian was opened up, he would obtain the essence sealed in it. If there were no accidents, his cultivation would definitely increase by several times in an instant. If he absorbed all of it, his cultivation would increase by tens of thousands of years. Chun-Shi, Chun-Shi. A figure involuntarily flashed across his mind. This figure seemed to have been imprinted in his mind unknowingly and was difficult to get rid of. It was precisely because of this that Shurtian felt that he owed her too much. Even if he wanted to, he couldn't repay her. Not only had she indirectly saved his life, she had even given him more than half of the divine essence in her body. This benefit was greater than the heavens. Furthermore, he had even ruined her pure and clean body. Sigh. As soon as he thought of this, he felt indescribably distressed. Ever since he went to the 100 Flowers Valley, everything that happened afterwards was basically out of his control. Come to think of it, it was like a dream. No matter what, I can't let her down in this lifetime. This was the responsibility of a man. When he first saw Chun-Shi, it was undeniable that he had a good impression of him. Now that such a thing had happened, the feelings in his heart had quietly changed. Moreover, there was an additional indescribable responsibility in his heart. Taking a deep breath, he secretly made a decision in his heart. Closing his eyes, he immersed his consciousness into his body, carefully probing the demonic veins in his body. Following the demonic veins, he entered his heart. At this moment, his heart was even stronger than before. Inside was where the demon manor was located, where his life was at stake. Out of instinct, the moment Sakura woke up, he could feel that there was a miraculous change in the demon manor. However, because of the matter with Chun-Shi, he didn't have the time to pay attention to these things. Now that Chun-Shi had left, if he chased after her, there would be nothing but awkwardness. With such a big change, Chun-Shi would definitely not be happy. He might even trigger the resentment in her heart on the spot. This would have the opposite effect. The only thing he could do now was to give her some time to calm down and then think of a way to beg for forgiveness. Therefore, temporarily separating was beneficial for both of them. His mind entered the Fey dwelling and carefully observed it. He discovered that the power of desire that had originally filled the Fey dwelling had completely disappeared. The enormous Fey dwelling appeared to be completely empty. At the center was a jade-like jade cauldron. The Yao-Yao cauldron continued to rotate at a seemingly constant speed. When he looked inside the cauldron, his heart was violently shocked. He was so shocked that his heart almost stopped beating. How could this be? How come my night had become like this? At this moment, his heart was filled with incomparable shock and astonishment. In the cauldron, there was a ball of black demon liquid that filled half the cauldron. On top of the demon liquid, there was a pitch-black black lotus. The black lotus was of the third grade, in the shape of a horn. It was as clear as jade. This jade was black jade like a crystal. It was very mystical. This third-grade black lotus was slowly rotating, absorbing the demon liquid in the cauldron. In the middle of the black lotus, there was a black pearl embedded on it. No matter how he looked at it, this bead looked very familiar. It was similar to the inner elixir that had formed after the demonic transformation tribulation. Now, the inner elixir was perfectly connected with the black lotus. It could be said that it had completely become a part of the black lotus and was inseparable. In other words, the inner core had become a black lotus. Could it be that my union with Chun, she caused the demon essence in my body to change? The inner core has turned into a black lotus. However, it can't be sealed like the demon vein. Sakura took a deep breath, and his mind became abnormally solemn. One must know that for the demon clan, their cultivation was all on their inner elixir. Immortal cultivators cultivated the golden core, the nascent soul, and the primordial spirit. However, the demon race's cultivation was all on the inner core. Every time the inner core turned, their realm would be one level higher. Once the inner core turned 9 times, they would be one of the strongest in the world. Therefore, there could not be any problems with the inner core. Once something bad happened, it would affect one's lifetime achievement. Even if it was Sakura, he couldn't help but be secretly alarmed. He quickly immersed his mind into the black lotus. This is the power of desire. Once he immersed his consciousness into the black lotus, he could not help but feel shocked again. This was because he could clearly feel a pure power of desire flowing continuously in the black lotus. However, it was divided into 3 types: joy, sorrow, and taste. Each of them occupied a corner of the black lotus. Black lotus third grade. They just happened to have 3 parts of the black lotus. Each of them occupied a grade. In the middle of the black lotus, there was a black pearl similar to the inner core. There was a pure demon essence. This was the cultivation that he had accumulated over the past few years through dual cultivation. For example, the 3 types of power of desire in the black lotus were showing signs of merging with the demon essence. However, although they seemed to be only one step away, it was as if they were separated by a natural moat. It seemed that something was still missing in order to truly merge. What Di Shirtian could really control now was only the demon essence that he had cultivated. If the power of desire was not merged, it would be impossible to truly use it. Black Lotus, the power of desire. Xiao Chun could feel that there was an indescribable mystery hidden in the Black Lotus. He could figure out that it should have evolved on its own during the unforeseen event yesterday, desiring to transform into a Black Lotus. The Black Lotus was divided into 3 grades, 1 grade for each. Vaguely, his mind seemed to be strongly touched. The Black Lotus had 3 grades. At this moment, there were also 3 demon veins that could operate smoothly in his body. Each type of desire had a grade. They could coexist peacefully in the Black Lotus and merge with the inner core, turning the inner core into this never-before-seen Black Lotus. There seemed to be a kind of truth of heaven and earth contained in it. There was a strange feeling in the dark. He felt that as long as he figured out some things, he could create a cultivation technique that could absorb the power of desire to cultivate. A cultivation technique that truly belonged to him. The power of desire in the Black Lotus is divided into 3 parts. I want to see what kind of mystery is hidden in it. Sakura wasn't an indecisive person. There was a change in his body. If he didn't figure it out, how could he continue to cultivate? Now that the inner core had turned into the Black Lotus, it meant that the Black Lotus was the inner core. It had replaced the inner core. Naturally, he had to figure out what kind of secrets were hidden in the Black Lotus. He made up his mind and probed into one of the Black Lotus with his mind. As he probed, his mind suddenly went into a trance. He only felt that the scene in front of him suddenly changed. Countless delicacies and fine wines appeared in front of him one after another. The alluring aroma immediately entered his nose. He immediately had the urge to pounce on them and swallow all the delicacies into his stomach. It was full of indescribable temptation. Not good. This is an illusion formed by desire. Tion suddenly came back to his senses. With his intelligence, he immediately understood that the scene in front of him was definitely an illusion formed by desire. There were all kinds of delicacies everywhere in the illusion. If he was not wrong, this illusion was formed to target one of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. In the instant he understood, he instinctively wanted to break free. It was strange, but it was not as difficult as he thought. This struggle allowed him to break free in an instant. His mind was still in the Black Lotus. There is actually an illusion in the Black Lotus, and it is formed to target one of the desires. Could it be that in order to completely merge the power of desire with the demonic spirit, I have to experience the illusion evolved by desire? As he turned around, the Sakra's mind went into overdrive. With his intelligence, he thought of a possibility within a few breaths. He had just entered the first grade of the Black Lotus, and he had fallen into an illusion. Didn't this mean that the Black Lotus was divided into 3 grades, and each grade contained 3 different illusions? Moreover, each of them was related to the power of desire. I know. Tion pondered for a moment and suddenly opened his eyes. In his eyes, there was a hint of joy of understanding. The Black Lotus is the foundation, and the illusion is the state of mind. With the foundation to bear and the state of mind to control, the two complement each other to control the power of desire. So that's it. Inspiration flashed through his mind one after another, and for a moment, all kinds of mysteries appeared in his mind. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 265. Thinking of Tion's intelligence. How astonishing was that? With just a little bit, he could immediately figure out countless possibilities. Unknowingly, he even had a feeling that he was about to touch that realm that he had always longed for. The cultivation technique in his body had a feeling that it would come out at any moment. If nothing unexpected happened, as long as he could pass the test of the illusion of desire in the Black Lotus, he would be able to master one of the power of desire. He would be able to break through the natural chasm and completely merge the power of desire with the demonic chi. At that time, he would be able to truly use the power of desire. His strength would definitely be greatly enhanced in an instant. He had a hunch that if he could really integrate all the power of desire in the 3rd grade Black Lotus into his body, his strength would definitely be promoted to an inestimable realm. However, to pass the illusion is definitely an extremely difficult thing. The illusion of desire is formed by the desires of all living beings between heaven and earth. How to pass it and how to break through it is unknown. No one knows what kind of scene it will be. But I can be sure that once I pass it, my state of mind will be astonishingly sublimated and reach an incredible realm. Only with a strong state of mind could one control the power of desire. It seems that even if I pass the illusion, I must be cautious. Back then, in the Zither realm, he personally experienced the horror of the sad state. Until now, he had only slightly adapted to it and was not unaffected by it. Once it broke out, it would be absolutely terrifying. That was the desire of all living beings, not the desire of 1 or 100 people. If one fell into it, they would be consigned to eternal damnation. Phew! He exhaled heavily, stood up, and looked at the cave. There was a trace of a bitter smile on his face. Why did I come back here? Could it be that I subconsciously want to go back to the place where I was born? The scene in front of him was impressively the cave in the Tiger Hill mountain range. Back then, he was born here. He remembered every stone very clearly. There was no reason for him to remember wrongly. Perhaps this could only be said to be a kind of subconscious instinct. Even if his mind was lost, he would still instinctively return here. He walked out of the cave and scanned his surroundings. The scenery in front of him, every blade of grass and every tree, told him that this was indeed Tiger Hill. Being in Tiger Hill, the scene of his family here naturally appeared in his mind. There was a trace of reminiscence on his face, but even more so was a trace of cold hatred. He muttered, "Don't worry, mother. This time, I'll first kill the female cultivator who captured you. It won't be long before I go to the 10,000 Beasts sect and bring you back. If anything happens to you, I will annihilate his entire family." After saying that, he didn't stay any longer. These things just needed to be kept in the bottom of his heart. He thought to himself, "I'm afraid that the southern wilderness will be in chaos this time. This time I kidnapped Chun-Shi. I'm afraid that my relationship with the other monster kings will be estranged. There was also Chun-Shi. Sai, forget it. He had to face what he had to face in the end." With a thought, a gust of demonic wind rose from the ground and swept him up. He quickly rushed back in the direction of the southern barbaric lands. The speed of the demonic wind was more than twice as fast as before he condensed his inner core. He was really like a flash of lightning. It was incomparably swift. However, he wasn't in the mood to look at the scenery along the way at all. Escaping wasn't the way to solve the problem. Since he had done something wrong, he should face it bravely. Even if he couldn't get forgiveness, it would make his heart feel better. After all, he was still doing his best to make up for it. As for whether he accepted it or not, it wasn't something he could control. He just had to do what he could. He quickly returned to the southern wilderness. He didn't have a long time to perform. As soon as he entered the southern wilderness, he immediately felt that the southern wilderness, which had always been quiet in the past, seemed to have suddenly awakened. There were birds and beasts running around everywhere. Obviously, they were searching for something. Wah! In the sky, an underworld crow with sharp eyes saw Di Shirtion and immediately let out a high-pitched cry. Although the cry was unpleasant and hoarse, the range that it spread out was quite wide. Almost in the blink of an eye, the cries were continuous and undulating. Di Shirtion, you're finally back. In the sky, a snow-white figure rushed over quickly. It was the red-crowned crane king. As soon as she arrived in front of Di Shirtion, she scolded angrily. "What did you do to Sister Shi?" Sister Shi just returned, and her face was cold. She immediately sealed the 100 Flowers Valley and didn't let anyone in. "If you dare to hurt Sister Shi, Iroadon will definitely not let you go." The red-crowned crane king immediately scolded, looking unusually angry. It turned out that She had also returned to the 100 Flowers Valley not long ago. However, after returning, she immediately asked the other kings to leave with the excuse that she needed to stabilize her cultivation after the tribulation. She also said that she wanted to seal the 100 Flowers Valley and not see other monsters for the time being. The reason was very reasonable, but from the cold expression on Chun-Shi's face, the red-crowned crane king instinctively felt that things were definitely not as simple as she said. Something important must have happened. Otherwise, with Chun-Shi's temperament, she had always been very gentle, graceful, and elegant. It was impossible for her to have such an unapproachable expression. Di Shirtion heard this and couldn't help but frown. Then, he raised his eyebrows and looked at the red-crowned crane king. Suddenly, a violent aura erupted from his body. However, it only appeared for a moment before disappearing. It was as if it had never appeared. However, the red-crowned crane king instantly felt as if an incomparably heavy mountain had suddenly appeared above its head. Its originally angry demeanor was immediately suppressed. "This is a matter between me and Chun-Shi. I will naturally deal with it personally. As for you, it's best if you don't interfere." There was a trace of indifference in his words, a trace of deterrence. "You?" The red-crowned crane king's eyes changed. Anger surged in its heart, but it could only spit out one word and couldn't continue. "Sorry, I'm in a bad mood. If my words have offended you, please don't take it to heart. Don't worry, this is only a matter between me and Chun-Shi. I'll deal with it." Di Shirtion raised his eyes and looked ahead. He saw a huge bald eagle with a bunch of golden feathers on its head rushing over excitedly. As it rushed over, it shouted loudly, "King, you're finally back. No need to say anything more. Let's go back to the Myriad Demon Valley first." We'll talk about the rest later. D. Tion wasn't in the mood to waste time here. He was already annoyed enough in his heart. It was a good time to go back to the valley and deal with it. Then, he would figure out how to deal with it next. All right, King, get on my back. I'll download it. You can go back. Without stopping for a moment, D. Tion stood on the eagle's back and went back to the myriad demon valley, leaving the red-crowned crane king in the same place. However, it wasn't good for it to chase after him. Big sister, what happened? You've never been like this before. Could it be that, Brother D? Don't mention D. Tion in front of me in the future. You're also not allowed to see him in the future. Just treat it as if we never knew him. Chun, she was sitting in the pavilion with a cold face. He stared blankly at the blooming lotus in the water. There was an indescribable, complicated look in his eyes. Next to him was the vermilion bird. The vermilion bird's eyes were full of worry. However, she didn't know what had happened. She asked Chun-Shi, but Chun-Shi wouldn't tell her. After returning to the valley and sitting in the pavilion, her heart was in a mess. In her mind, when she thought of what had happened before, a murderous intent emerged. She had an impulse to kill D. Tion with her own hands. But then, a trace of other thoughts appeared inexplicably. She couldn't kill him no matter what. When she thought of D. Tion, there was an extremely complicated feeling in her heart. She definitely hated him, but inexplicably, there was a trace of a shadow in her heart, a trace of a strange emotion. Every time she wanted to make up her mind to kill him, he would run out, causing her to become upset and complicated. Seeing this, the vermilion bird was full of worry, but she didn't know how to comfort her. She could only accompany her, flying up and down anxiously. No one knew what she was thinking. Since returning and sitting in the pavilion, Chun-Shi stared blankly at the lotus outside the pavilion without blinking. It seemed that there was no focus, and the divine light was scattered. Obviously, her mind was not on the lotus. She sat there for a day and a night. Ding-dong, ding-ding-dong-dong. On the second day, a melodious sound of zither suddenly came clearly from outside the valley. It made the valley, which had been silent all this time, seem to have suddenly awakened. Sister, there's the sound of a zither. I'll go outside and take a look. The vermilion bird had a playful personality. When she saw Chun-Shi's serious look, she was not in the mood to play. She was worried that something would happen, so she stayed here. Given her character, she had been staying here for a day and a night. When she heard the sound of zither, she was suddenly energized. She wanted to go out and take a look. There's no need to go out. Chun-Shi shook his head softly. He looked out of the valley and saw the light inside, which was complicated. Why? The vermilion bird asked in confusion. Ding-dong, ding-dong. After the first few notes, the sound of a zither immediately flowed smoothly like flowing water. It sounded very crisp and pleasing to the ear when connected together. The sound of the zither was connected into a song. Listening to the sound of the zither, there seemed to be a lingering artistic conception. It was as if there was a man pouring out his love to the woman he loved. Feng-Shi returns to her hometown, roams the 4 seas to find her. Why I didn't meet her, I didn't have a general. How can I comprehend today? When the sound of the zither was heard, it gradually became a song. Along with the sound of the zither, there was a lingering artistic conception in the song. It was as if it was summoning a lover. Ah, this is Brother D's voice. Brother D is playing the zither outside. Sister, listen. The vermilion bird could not help but exclaim when she heard the song. She immediately recognized that the person playing the zither was D. Tion. Let him play. Let's see what tricks he can play. When Chun-Shi heard it, his eyes flashed and he muttered. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 266. I heard that Brother D left the southern barbarian lands last time to learn the Guqin. Now that he has returned, this is the first time I've heard him play a song. Sister, listen, this song is so beautiful. It's like someone is murmuring to the woman he loves. And this song, it's so nice to hear. The phoenix and the phoenix return to their hometown, roaming the four seas to find the phoenix. The phoenix is the male, the phoenix is the female. Brother D is seeking a mate. The vermilion bird listened to the sound of the guqin and couldn't help but immerse herself in it. She felt the meaning of the song. Her two wings were like two arms, folded together and gently flapped. A phoenix seeking a phoenix. Chunxi's expression was still indifferent. How could the resentment in his heart be easily eliminated? He sneered, "I'd like to see how he's going to seek a phoenix. Does he think that a song can resolve his wrongdoings?" He softly shouted and listened to the song. It was not that he couldn't hear the sentimental mood in the song, but he didn't show any expression, just listened indifferently. Ding dong, ding dong. The sound of the guqin was melodious and gentle, like lovers whispering to each other by the ear, like a cool breeze blowing on the face. It was unusually sentimental. In the sound of the guqin, there was a hint of affection and a deep sense of apology. This was Di Shirtian placing his heart in the sound of the guqin, expressing his apology with the sound of the guqin. But there was also a scene of a phoenix seeking a phoenix, chirping and expressing their love. As the saying goes, meeting is fate. Lovesickness is gradually entangled, but meeting is difficult. The mountain is high and the road is long, but only 1,000 miles away can share the beauty of the moon. Because of dissatisfaction, the dream of a couple becomes empty. So we take shape and ask the swan goose to pass the message quickly. She opens the seal and holds the jade photo, looking at it carefully, but only to see that her lips are red, her eyebrows are black, her eyes are watery, and her feelings are deeper. How can infinite love be expressed? Looking to the southeast, the song of a phoenix seeking a phoenix. Along with the sound of the guqin, the song started again. With a beautiful lady in the boudoir, everyone in the room poisons my heart. How are we destined to cross necks like mandarin ducks? Hu and Cece soar together. Phoenix perches with me, and I'll be a concubine forever. No matter how nicely you put it, I, Chunxi, will never forgive you. Unknowingly, a petal between Chunxi's fingers had already been crushed, no longer recognizable. Chunxi thought to herself ruthlessly. The incident this time was extremely harmful to her. Not only had her pure body been taken away, but more than half of the divine splendor that her main body had accumulated over countless years had entered Di Shirtian's body. This kind of hatred could be washed away even with all the water in the three rivers. Following the sound of the guqin, a pavilion suddenly appeared at the entrance of the valley. There were tables and stools in the pavilion, and Di Shirtian, dressed in a black robe, was sitting in the pavilion. In front of him was a pitch-black guqin. The guqin was the 7 sins demonic guqin. Because it had absorbed abundant power of desire, it had become pitch-black. However, because Di Shirtian had also condensed his own Niden, he had officially been promoted from a demonic beast to a demon. Whether it was the 7 sins demonic guqin or the tiger soul saber, they were now in the process of being promoted to a magic weapon. However, this process still needed a certain amount of time, and it could not be completed in a short time. Once the guqin changed from black to a snow-white crystal like jade, it meant that the guqin had been transformed from a celestial device to a magic weapon. If one were to take a closer look, one would be able to clearly discover that within the zither, streams of pure desire energy were continuously evolving and gathering together to form several strange talismans. It was imprinted on the guqin. Every time a talisman was formed, the blackness in the guqin would recede a lot. When all the power of desire was formed into talismans, the guqin would naturally be promoted to a magic weapon. When he returned to the myriad demon valley before, his mind could not calm down. There was always a kind of irritable aura rising in his heart, and his mind was restless. From time to time, the appearance of Chun-Shi when she left flashed in his mind. From the beginning to the end, he had never felt so indebted to anyone. She was the only one he had nothing to say. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that running away was not a solution. In the future, He could only do his best to make up for it. Seriously speaking, it would be hypocritical to say that he did not admire a woman like Chun-Shi after seeing her. It was too much to say that it was love at first sight. Tian had his own views on love at first sight. The so-called love at first sight was just a trace of affection between each other, and then through mutual contact and understanding, it was sublimated. It transformed into love. No one would fall in love with another person at first sight. Love, no matter when, was like a delicate flower that needed to be carefully cultivated and cared for. Only in this way could it flourish. It could even blossom and bear fruit. With a trace of affection after the previous meeting, coupled with such a thing, he could no longer look at Chun-Shi as an ordinary woman. It was not a forced thing to say that he wanted to pursue her. One was to seek her, and the other was to make up for it. Therefore, after thinking about it for a whole day, as soon as the sun rose, he took the Guqin to the outside of the 100 Flowers Valley. He set up a pavilion outside the valley, sat in the pavilion, and played the song, "The Phoenix Seeks the Phoenix." Friendship is harmonious, and who knows the person in the middle of the night? Both wings rise and fly high, and I feel no sorrow. His 10 fingers fluttered on the strings as if they were moving clouds and flowing water. The strings vibrated, and a beautiful and melodious sound of the zither rang out. When he was playing the zither, his desire to pursue Huang Xiaolong, and even the deep sense of apology in his heart, were all poured into the zither. He put his heart into the sound of the zither. He expressed his feelings through the sound of the Guqin. This was an extremely profound realm in the art of music. In the secular world, he could be called a master of the Guqin. At this time, if he could pour his demon essence into his 10 fingers and play with it, something unbelievable would happen. He could truly develop the realm of the Guqin and create a phoenix in the sky. And Tian did the same. Pure demon essence flowed through his demon meridians into his 10 fingers and poured into every note of the Guqin every time he plucked the strings. Immediately, the love in the Guqin became more obvious and lingering. Ow! As the Guqin gradually reached its climax, the Guqin sounds connected together, and the artistic conception of the song spewed out. In the sky, a magical scene appeared silently. In the void, there was a mountain forest formed by wudong trees. In the forest, there was a phoenix and a phoenix. The phoenix and the phoenix stood on 2 wudong trees. The phoenix spread its wings one by one, and 7-color divine light flowed continuously. It looked unusually handsome. It raised its head and let out a clear and melodious phoenix cry. The phoenix cry was full of affection, and it seemed to want the phoenix to be its partner. That sound went straight into one's heart, and it was so moving that one couldn't help but want to accept the other's love. The Phoenix Seeking the Phoenix was a wonderful song in the world. It was the most beautiful song between lovers, and it was incomparably moving. Generally, lovers who loved each other deeply would feel the same when they heard this song, and their feelings for each other would also reach an indescribable level of sublimation. There is a beauty, and I won't forget when I see her. Not seeing her for a day, I miss her like crazy. The phoenix soars, seeking the phoenix from all over the world. But the beauty is not at the east wall. Replacing the words with the Guqin, we talk about our hearts. When will I see Su Shi? She comforts me. Willing words and virtue, we will go hand in hand. Not being able to fly, she makes me fall. Mvjur, go out and ask him to leave. Just say that I don't want to see him, and ask him not to play the Guqin here. Let my 100 Flowers Valley be quiet. Chun-Shi looked up at the scene in the void that was created by the Guqin's artistic conception. He was silent for a long time before he spoke to the Zhunyao. Why? Zhu'er thinks that this song is very nice. Zhu'er has never heard such a nice song before. It's really beautiful. Let Big Brother D play for a while. The Zhunyao said, in confusion. In any case, she felt that she had never heard such a nice song before, and she couldn't wait to hear another one. Zhu'er, are you not listening to me anymore? If I tell you to go, then go. Yes, sister, the Zhunyao said with some grievance. She flapped her wings and flew out of the valley. In the blink of an eye, she saw the pavilion outside the valley. When she saw D. Shirtion in the pavilion, she couldn't help but fly over happily. She said with a smile, "Big brother D, it's really you playing the guqin. Hee, it's really nice. Zhuer loves it. But," she paused and said in a low voice, "Sister asked you to leave. She doesn't want to see you. Big brother D, Zhuer doesn't understand what happened between you and sister." When the vermilion bird saw Sakura, she didn't feel that he was a stranger at all. She giggled and asked again. This little gossip of hers had completely aroused her curiosity. No matter how she thought about it, she couldn't understand what was going on. "Zhuer, this matter is between me and your sister. You better not ask too much. I'll leave now, but I'll come again tomorrow." Sakura looked at the vermilion bird flying up and down with a happy and carefree look, which indeed made people envious. Towards her inquiry, he could only respond with silence. After that, he put away the 7 sins demonic guqin, turned around, and left immediately. "Hey, why are you leaving so soon?" The Zhu Niao saw and wanted to stop him, but Di Shirtion was already far away. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. She shook her head and said, "I really don't understand. But Big Brother D said he'll come again tomorrow. That means I'll have another song to listen to. That's great. Hee, I'll tell sister." The Zhu Niao smiled secretly. She flapped her wings and quickly flew back to the valley. Sure enough, Di Shirtion did as he said. Since he was determined to do it, he had no intention of backing down. The next day, he went outside the valley again and played a song. When he saw no response after the song, he didn't feel discouraged and left. Although love was indispensable, one's goals and ideals were equally important. Going to the 100 Flowers Valley to play a song was only one morning. The rest of the time was spent on other things. But every morning, he would come outside the valley to play a song, regardless of rain or shine. After he finished playing, he would leave. He persevered. For 10 days, he didn't stop. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 267. The music he played often changed, but the most played ones were a male phoenix seeking a female phoenix and the lovers of Leon. The male phoenix seeking a female phoenix was easy to play. In this world, there were people who had made music and played it according to the score. However, the Lovers of Leon was a song that evolved from a story unique to his previous life. Fortunately, Di Shirtion still had an extraordinary talent for the art of guqin. He was familiar with the legend of the Lovers of Leon, so it was not too difficult to evolve the artistic conception in the story into the music. In his previous life, he had found a song on the internet and listened to it. It had some influence in his mind. This time, it took some time, but in the end, he managed to compose the complete song. When he played it, there was indeed a kind of poignant and romantic feeling. The lingering artistic conception of the couple turning into butterflies could be clearly expressed. Although he still did not get any response from her every morning, since she did not ask Vermilion Bird to drive him away. He would leave on his own after playing a song. There are also tricks to pursuing a woman. Fortunately, I still know a trick or two. I hope it will be useful. However, for the time being, I should let Chun-Shi familiarize herself with my existence. At that time, when she is familiar with my existence and my music every morning, I'll try to stop for a day or two and play hard to get. Maybe it will have some effect. Alas, forget it. It's all my fault. After the last note fell from the Sakura's hand, he sighed secretly and took the ancient zither. He turned around and returned to the Demon's Valley, as usual. Riding the demon wind, he did not deliberately speed up. He just drifted naturally with the wind, letting the wind take him forward, but he was thinking about something else. It's been more than a year since I returned to the southern barbarian lands. There are only a few days left before the opening of the Heavenly Demon Mystery Land. I can't miss this opportunity. It's said that after the Mystery Land opens, you'll have to wait for thousands of years before it opens again. Sakura thought to himself, I don't have the time to wait for thousands of years. There are many things that are urgent. I remember that I made an appointment with Wu Wudi and the others to go to the bone-burying wilderness 10 years later. If it's really like what they said, that I can find a spiritual essence like the grass of immortality there, then it's still worth going there to explore. In the wine god's treasure mirror, there seemed to be a type of immortal revival wine that required the grass of immortality as its main ingredient. If such a spirit wine can be brewed, it will definitely be beneficial to the future. He had another wish, which was to brew all of the spirit wines recorded in the wine god's treasure mirror and store them in the wine god gourd. That way, he would be able to take a sip or two from time to time. That would be the wonderful life of an immortal. Furthermore, according to the records, the effects of the undying soul return wine could be said to be extremely miraculous. As long as one drank a mouthful of the undying soul return wine, even if one were to be killed in the next instant, one would still be immortal. No matter how serious the injury, it would heal in an instant. Moreover, even if one were to die, they could drink a mouthful. That person's soul would be revived, resurrected. It could be said to be a divine-grade spirit wine, and the various ingredients in it were relatively precious. No matter how capable one was, it would take a lot of effort to gather all of them. Many of the ingredients had long gone extinct in the world and had not been seen for countless years. However, at the end of the day, the bone-burying plains would definitely yield a great harvest. No matter how he looked at it, it was worth a trip. Moreover, Wu Wudi and Wu Wudi seemed worth befriending. Moreover, there was the trip to Qingqiu Mountain that Bai Hu had mentioned. Although he didn't know why she wanted him to go to Qingqiu Mountain, he had no choice but to make the trip after hearing Bai Hu's solemn expression. When I return from the Sky-Face Secret Realm, I must find some time to go into seclusion for a few years and think of a way to create my own cultivation method. Otherwise, it will be difficult to cultivate in the future. Moreover, I've chosen such a remote path, and other cultivation methods are only of reference value to me. I hope I can obtain some treasures left behind by the Sky Fae in the Sky-Face Secret Realm to help me create my own cultivation method. Sky Fae, what kind of powerful existence was that? I don't know if I'll be able to reach that level one day. However, even if I can, it won't be something that can be achieved in a few thousand years or tens of thousands of years. Deep down, he sorted out his thoughts for the future and planned carefully. As he did so, he clearly felt that what he lacked the most wasn't other cultivation methods or treasures, but time. No one could become an expert in a short period of time. They relied on the accumulation of time to comprehend the truths of the world. If the heavens could give him thousands or tens of thousands of years, Di Shurtian was confident that he could become an expert who looked down on the world. He could explore even more profound realms. Forget it. The secret realm is about to open, and I have to prepare well. In this period of time, I should consolidate my newly broken realm with my cultivation base of condensing an inner core. Moreover, my inner core has become very different after dual cultivation with Chun Shi and seems to be much stronger than when I first condensed my inner core. If that's the case, then with my strength, I'll be able to match even a nascent soul cultivator. With Tiger Soul using the demonic god Youth and the Seven Sins Fiend Zither playing, nascent soul cultivators may not be my match. I should still have a considerable advantage in this trip to the secret realm. He pondered as he hurried forward and soon returned to the Thousand Demon Valley. Under the lead of Chi Hua and the others, there was a large number of spirit beasts that had been born with spirituality in the valley. They were all using the purple chi that rose from the east in the morning to absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and cultivate. There were thousands of spirit beasts cultivating together, and the scene was indeed a little spectacular. However, they were all gathered in an open space. The positions where they stood were a little messy. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the valley was slowly surging into their bodies. When I return from the secret realm, I should build a gathering place and completely integrate the demon race in the valley. Build a foundation. The scene in front of him made Di Shurtian secretly plan in his heart. He had a rough plan in his heart. He just had to wait for how to implement it. He didn't stay for long and returned to the cave abode. Little White was now in seclusion. She also had a kind of obsession with strength, and her desire for power was no less than Yin's. Therefore, she had been seizing the time to cultivate. He sat down on the stone bed and raised his eyebrows slightly. He reached out and patted the storage bag lightly. Suddenly, a light flashed, and a treasure box that shone with a green light appeared in his hand. There were strange talismans on the treasure box, forming lines that covered the top and bottom of the box, and on the front of the treasure box. However, there was an unusually messy picture. There were tens of thousands of pieces, and there was almost no connection between these pieces. They were unusually messy, like small tadpoles. There were indeed many pieces, but this jigsaw puzzle was made with the technique of the universe inside. There were many pieces, but each piece could be clearly imprinted in the eyes. Inside, there was only one piece that was blank. As long as the blank piece was removed, the pieces could be moved and the jigsaw puzzle could be completed. This treasure box was the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box. Ever since he solved the first jigsaw puzzle, he obtained the ancient scroll and learned the divine song. It was extremely precious, but in the next few years, the treasure box was always with Bai Hu and Su Tianxiang, and he didn't have the opportunity to come into contact with it. It was only until he returned that the treasure box fell into his hands again. But today was the first time he took it out to look at it carefully. Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box, I really don't know how you came to be here. How many jigsaw puzzles are there? The first one had thousands of pieces, and now the second one has tens of thousands of pieces. I don't know how much effort and time it would take to complete this jigsaw puzzle, if there were any left. To solve it, it would take at least 10 or 100 years. The puzzle on the Imperial Heavenly Treasure Box was faintly surrounded by 5-colored divine light. In fact, Sakura also knew in his heart that just by solving the first puzzle, he was able to obtain such a precious divine object. If he could solve it again, the object that he obtained would definitely be more precious than the ancient scroll and even more incredible. But the key was that he had to be able to solve the jigsaw puzzle. While looking at it carefully, he didn't forget to use his strong memory to imprint the jigsaw puzzle in his mind bit by bit. He had to first memorize the entire jigsaw puzzle in his mind, and then use his mental calculation to find the pieces that were related to each other and deduce them in his mind. But there were too many pieces, and just imprinting them all in his mind took no less than 2 hours. When he had completely memorized them, he put the treasure box away again. When he had time, he would slowly deduce it. If he persevered, he would be able to deduce it completely sooner or later. He estimated that it would take at least a few years. No longer thinking about it, he sat cross-legged on the bed and secretly immersed his mind into his body. He ran the demonic spirit, which quickly ran in the demonic vein. When he absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, the rich power of desire between heaven and earth also entered his body. Moreover, the speed of absorption was several times faster than that of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The power of desire was divided into 3 types, which corresponded to the demonic vein in his body. After absorbing it, he would first refine it in the demon-refining tripod and then enter the 3rd-class Black Lotus. The Black Lotus was the inner elixir. The Black Lotus absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and the power of desire. The spiritual chi was transformed into demonic spirit and stored in the black bead. The power of desire from the adventure was divided into 3 parts and entered into each of the 3 parts. It could be said that it was in good order, but it still didn't merge. It was a kind of incomplete. Time began to pass quietly. It was getting closer and closer to the opening of the heavenly demon mystery realm. The entire southern wilderness, no, not only the southern wilderness, but also other places and even the entire world of immortal cultivators faintly felt a different atmosphere gathering. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian. Chapter 268. In the blink of an eye, a month passed quietly. Tirtian still went to the 100 Flowers Valley to play a song every day, rain or shine. It had gradually become a habit. This kind of persistence in playing the guqin in the early morning imperceptibly deepened his attainments in the art of the guqin. Moreover, the living creatures nearby seemed to be able to feel the artistic conception of the guqin. Every day, they would come to the pavilion to listen to the guqin. They already had a rare spirituality. Elder sister, Brother D left again after playing the guqin. This time, he played The Lovers of Liang again. It sounded so sad and beautiful. Also, the story about the lovers of Liang that Brother D told me last time was really too seductive. This is already the 41st day. Zhu'er can see through Brother D's thoughts. Can't you tell, elder sister? In the 100 Flowers Valley, Chunshi sat in the pavilion, looking at the lotus flowers in the water that were not stained by the mud, while listening to the music that was like the sound of nature. No hatred could be seen on her face. She had already returned to her previous demeanor, dignified, graceful, elegant, and all kinds of temperaments gathered on her body. It seemed that it was not a long time, but the coldness in her heart was already hidden under her face. Coldness in her heart and hatred in her heart. But at least on the surface, she had returned to normal. If he wants to play, let him play. That's his own business. What does it have to do with elder sister? With the wrong things he has done, even if he plays for a year, 10 years, or 100 years, I won't forgive him. Her expression was calm. When she talked about Tirtian again, her expression was calm, as if she was talking about a stranger. But only she knew what was in her heart. He, elder sister, actually, Zhu'er thinks that Brother D is very good. Zhu Niao blinked and revealed a sly look. She thought to herself, Brother D promised me 100 bottles of monkey wine and asked me to persuade elder sister often. Well, I can't take the benefits and not do anything. Anyway, if Brother D becomes my brother-in-law, that would be the best thing. In the future, I will have another powerful backer. Look, Big Brother D is a unique prodigy in cultivation. When he came to the southern barbarian lands, he was just a demon, but it didn't take long for him to break through and become a demon. Look, recently, he even transcended the tribulation and transformed into a demon. It has only been a few years. In the history of our demon clan, we have never seen such a genius. In our southern barbarian lands, I'm afraid other than my sister, Big Brother D is the strongest. Moreover, Big Brother D knew how to play the guqin. He was so cultured. Zhu'er really wants such a good brother-in-law. Zhu Niao spared no effort in speaking. Oh, you... Chunshi extended her slender finger and gently tapped the vermilion bird's head. She shook her head helplessly and said, Zhu'er, there are some things that you don't understand. Don't blindly meddle in this matter. If you have nothing to do, go out of the valley and make a trip to your sister Medusa and the Myriad Demon Valley. Ask Medusa to go to the valley with him. Just tell them it's about the heavenly demon mystic realm. Chunshi suddenly changed the topic to the heavenly demon mystic realm. Calculating the time, there was not much time left before the opening day. Heavenly demon mystic realm? Sister, are we only going to inform Big Brother D and Sister Medusa? Don't we need to inform the black guy and that stinky crow? Zhu Niao tilted her head and asked in a childish voice. No need. Going to the heavenly demon mystic realm is extremely dangerous. If a demon goes with only a cultivation base, it will be extremely dangerous, and there is the danger of dying at any time. Even if they go, they might not be of any help. It's better to cultivate quietly in the southern barbarian lands and wait patiently for the tribulation. This is the most important thing. Letting Medusa and the rest go can also be considered an opportunity. The heavenly demon mystic realm is not something that can be gained by entering a large number of people. It depends on fate. If one is not fated, no matter how many people enter, it will be in vain. Chunshi shook his head slightly and explained. Oh, I see. Zhu Niao blinked and called out, Zhu'er understands. I'll go inform them now. After saying that, she no longer hesitated. She flapped her wings and happily flew out of the valley. These days, she was bored out of her wits. Now that she had the opportunity to go out and soar freely, how could she not be happy? After leaving the valley, she quickly flew north. When Junyao arrived at the Myriad Demon Valley, a little demon in the valley went in to report and brought her into the cave abode. Di Shirtian also came out from his meditation. When he saw Junyao, he could not help but ask with a faint smile, "Jure, why are you free to come to Big Brother D's place today? Could it be that something happened?" As he spoke, he came to the table, took out the wine god's gourd, and poured 2 cups of spirit wine. Zhu did not say anything else. As soon as she smelled the wine, she immediately landed on the table, stuck her head in, and gulped it down. Only then did she say comfortably, "It's really comfortable. Big Brother D's spirit wine is still the best. I really want to live here every day. That way, I can drink to my heart's content." After saying that, she smiled and winked at Di Shirtian, saying, "Come here. My sister asked me to invite you over. She has something to say." Whoa! When Di Shirtian heard that, he suddenly stood up from the stool. His expression became serious, and he said, "Your sister asked me to go over?" There was some disbelief in his words. He thought to himself, could it be that She is willing to forgive me? Although he thought about it, he knew that the possibility was not high. However, She's invitation was exactly what he wanted. Naturally, he would not decline at all. He quickly nodded and said seriously, "Since your sister asked, let's go over now." After saying that, with a thought, a demonic wind rose from the ground. It swept up the vermilion bird and rushed straight to the 100-Flower Valley. After walking dozens of times in a row, the path was incomparably familiar. He could walk it even with his eyes closed. "Come, Big Brother D, I'll take you to the Lotus Pavilion. My sister is waiting for us there." Not long after, they arrived at the 100-Flower Valley. The vermilion bird cheerfully led the way in front and entered the valley first. Humph! However, Sakura stood in front of the valley and let out a heavy sigh. Looking at the valley, his gaze was unusually complicated as he muttered to himself, 100 Flowers Valley, 100 Flowers Valley. When I couldn't enter, I wanted to enter, but I didn't expect that when I can enter now, I would actually have the thought of not daring to step in as I stand here." He sighed deeply and shook his head with a wry smile. "It seems that no matter what, I really can owe a debt. It's easy to owe a debt, but hard to pay it back." With a complicated feeling in his heart, he stepped into the valley and looked at the scenery inside. The flowers and plants that had been damaged by the heavenly tribulation and the battle were now in full bloom in every corner. It could be said to be colorful and beautiful. Smelling the pleasant fragrance of the flowers, he felt that the inside and outside of the valley were 2 completely different worlds. Following the vermilion bird, they arrived at the Lotus Pavilion built on the water again. Di Shirtian stared into the pavilion, and his eyes suddenly widened in surprise. He thought to himself, "Why is Medusa here too? I knew it. How could She forgive me so easily and meet me alone?" While Xiao Chun felt surprised, he also felt relieved. In the pavilion, Shi, who was dressed in plain white palace attire, sat opposite Medusa, who was dressed in colorful clothes. They were currently conversing softly. "Sister Shi, did anything bad happen when Di Shirtian took you away last time? I heard from Zhur that recently he's been coming here every day to play the zither." Medusa said softly, "I'm fine." She shook his head. "Don't worry, I'm fine." "All right, he's here too." With that, he raised his head and glanced at Di Shirtian. There was neither hatred nor love in his eyes. It was as if he was looking at a stranger. His eyes were as calm as water. He was unperturbed. Alas! Seeing this, Di Shirtian could not help but reveal a trace of bitterness. His heart was cold. To be honest, he would rather see hatred in Shi's eyes than look at him as if he was looking at a stranger. If he hated him, at least he still had him in his heart. In that way, many things could be changed. But now, he did not know what to do. "Come in," Shi said indifferently. Di Shirtian took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He walked into the pavilion, looked around, and sat down on an empty stool. Shi glanced around. After seeing that everyone was present, he said, I called you here this time because I have something to tell you. I guess you all know that the Heavenly Demon Mystery Land is only a month away from opening. With that, he paused, picked up the teacup in front of him, moistened his mouth, and continued. Although the southern wilderness is small, this mystery land was left behind by the ancestors of the Demon Clan. On the day it opens, the Demon Clan has to try their luck. Maybe we can get the blessings of our ancestors. However, it's also very dangerous. Only the two of you have the ability. I called you here to see if you're willing to go. His voice was elegant. As he spoke, he looked at Medusa. As for Tion, he did not look at him again since he sat down. It was as if he was really a stranger who did not exist. Medusa was also a woman. She was meticulous. She saw all of this. But after all, she had no reason to ask, so she could only bury her doubts in the bottom of her heart. She thought to herself, could it be that sister she really has something to do with Tion? The Mystery Land is an opportunity left behind by the ancestors of the Demon Clan. We have to go. Count me in. When Tion heard this, he had been looking forward to the Heavenly Demon Mystery Land for a long time. Recently, he had been secretly thinking about it. Now that he heard Chun-Shi mention it, he agreed without hesitation. However, his tone changed, and he asked, however, I only know that one of the entrances to the Mystery Land is on North Night Island, but it has been occupied by immortal cultivators. I wonder where the other entrance is. He looked at Chun-Shi's indifferent face. Last time, he knew from her that there were two entrances to the Mystery Land. One was on North Night Island, and the other was controlled by the Demon Clan. However, he did not know where it was or the route to it. The entrance to the Demon Clan is at Smoky Wave Lake. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 269. In fact, Tion had been in a dilemma. Human cultivators definitely could not enter North Night Island. After all, this was not like the time when he went to the secular world to learn the Guqin. The cultivators he met were not cultivators with high cultivation. With his ability to conceal his aura, he would not be exposed unless something unexpected happened. However, it was different this time. The Heavenly Demon Mystery Realm was very important. The treasures inside would arouse the desire of even the most powerful cultivators. They would go to the Mystery Realm and hope that they would be the one with the great opportunity. He guessed that the cultivators going to the Mystery Realm this time would be at the nascent soul stage. Even cultivators with a higher cultivation level than that would definitely go. Perhaps there would even be old monsters in the tribulation passing stage. It would be extremely difficult for such an expert to restrain his aura and hide his identity. If his identity was exposed, he would die on North Night Island no matter how powerful he was. The danger was too great, so much so that it was unbearable. There was another thing that he heard from Chun-Shi. However, meeting Chun-Shi was also a difficult thing to do. Therefore, before this, he had been inwardly hesitating, his heart wavering, thinking about what to do. Now that there was an opportunity, how could he let it go? He immediately asked without any hesitation. The Mystery Realm was an opportunity, but it would not wait for you. You had to fight for it and seize it yourself. Tion was very clear about this. Once there was an opportunity, he would not let it go. Smoky Wave Lake? What is that place? I've never heard of it. When Tion heard about the second entrance, he could not help but frown. He had a rough understanding of the Purple Gold mainland after being outside for more than a year. He knew some of the famous places. However, he had no impression of this Smoky Wave Lake at all. Sister Shi, could it be? The Smoky Wave Lake where the legendary dragon clan, the leader of the scaly dragons, appeared? Medusa was different. After all, she had lived for too long and had some understanding of it. However, there was a weird expression on his face. Yes, it's that Smoky Wave Lake. Chun-Shi nodded and said softly, the Misty Wave Lake extends for tens of thousands of miles. Although it is called a lake, it is comparable to the east, west, north, and south seas. There were many aquatic species in the lake, and it was rich in resources. Moreover, it was said that the dragon clan lived in the lake, and that the dragon clan of the four seas had moved in. In the middle of the lake, there was a misty island. The island was huge, and there was an entrance to the secret realm on it. Once the secret realm was opened, it would appear. Every time this happens, the demon clans scattered across the continent will rush there. At that time, he would be able to exchange for some items he needed on the island. No matter what, it's worth a trip. Speaking of this misty wave lake, it could be said to be a beautiful place with endless scenery. Not only did it occupy a vast area of water, but it also had an independent spring in the middle of the lake. The water from the mouth of the spring was exceptionally sweet. As long as the mouth of the spring existed, the water in the lake would never dry up. There were all kinds of aquatic products in the water. It was said that it was connected to the four seas and was incomparably rich. There were dragons living in the lake. They ruled over countless aquatic species in the water. They were extremely powerful, but they had always kept a low profile. There were very few people who knew that there were dragons in the Misty Wave Lake. Even if they knew, most of them would not wantonly spread the news. In fact, the strength of the Misty Wave Lake itself was abnormally huge. Even cultivators did not dare to provoke it easily. One had to know that dragons were the head of all beasts. They had tiger whiskers and hyena tails, bodies as long as snakes, scales like fish, horns like deer, and claws like eagles. They could walk and fly, pour water, overturn rivers and seas, swallow wind and spit out fog, and cause clouds and rain. Moreover, dragons had 9 similarities, and their bodies were divine beasts with the strengths of all kinds of animals. They had many names. Those with scales were called flood dragons. Those with wings were called dragons. Those with horns were called hui dragons, and those without horns were called chio dragons. The small ones were called flood dragons, and the big ones were called dragons. Legends said that they could appear and hide, and could be thin or huge, and could be short or long. They could ascend to the sky at the spring equinox and dive into the abyss at the autumn equinox. They could summon the wind and rain, and were almost omnipotent. In the world, dragons were the head of the scaled species, and phoenixes were the head of the flying species. Most of them lived in the 4 seas. According to the records, in ancient times, dragons were often seen. Moreover, the dragon clan was unusually prosperous at that time. They had many descendants and could be said to be the hero of the 4 seas. They were a race with great strength at the top. But for some reason, after the fusion of heaven and earth in ancient times, dragons were rarely seen. They were unusually rare and rarely appeared in the world. Until now, in the secular world, they had almost become a legend. However, there was absolutely no need to doubt their existence. In fact, if one really wanted to consider the dragons as part of the demon race, there was nothing wrong with it. There are dragons in the Misty Wave Lake? Tion could not help but exclaim in surprise. He was no stranger to dragons. In his previous life, the divine dragon was the totem of Huaxia. It was worshipped by the people of Huaxia for countless years, and even claimed to be the descendants of dragons. In various records, the divine dragon had long become a myth. It was omnipotent. She glanced at Tion and did not answer. He just said, "Many powerhouses of our demon race will definitely rush to the Misty Wave Lake this time. Many of the 8 famous demon kings in the past might go. As for us, southern barbarians, if you want to go, you go. The underworld Crow King and the others won't have any chance. There's also the matter of preparing for the tribulation. It's up to you to decide whether to go or not. Here, there are 2 jade slips that are maps to the Misty Wave Lake. Pada." She waved his hand and placed 2 crystal-clear jade slips on the table. He did not force them to go or not. It was up to Tion and the others to decide whether to go or not. Most of the demon race will go. How can I miss it? It's a good opportunity to make some friends from the demon race. I'm definitely going to the Misty Wave Lake. Tion did not hesitate to grab a jade slip in front of him. He moved his demon consciousness and probed into the jade slip. As soon as his demon consciousness entered, There was a huge amount of information in the jade slip into his mind. After careful observation, he found that it was indeed a map. The map covered a large area, but many places were not marked in detail. It only recorded the road from southern barbarians to the misty wave lake. According to the record, it would take at least 10 days to reach the destination from here without stopping for a moment. There's no time to lose. Medusa, why don't we prepare ourselves and go together in 3 days? We could take care of each other. Deschertion saw Medusa also pick up the jade slip and knew that she also decided to go. So he nodded and suggested, "Okay, I'll go to your demon's valley in 3 days and wait for you." Medusa nodded. Although they had condensed their Niden and transformed into demons, no one could be sure that there would not be any accidents along the way. If they went together and joined hands, they could take care of each other if something happened on the way. After all, they were all from the southern barbarian demon race. This arrangement was the best. Deschertion heard it and also had a plan. He turned to look at Chun-Shi and saw that Chun-Shi still looked like he was facing a stranger. He smiled bitterly, but he still reached out and patted the storage bag gently. With a flash of light, a small jade box appeared in his hand. He put it on the table and pushed it to Chun-Shi. He said softly, "This is a small thing I made when I was free. I hope you can accept it." After that, he immediately stood up and walked out of the valley without hesitation. He did not wait for Chun-Shi to accept or refuse. He knew very well that the possibility of rejection was higher. He just did not want to give Chun-Shi any chance to refuse. As soon as he finished speaking, he left immediately. Moreover, he walked very quickly and left the 100 Flowers Valley in the blink of an eye. He rode the demon wind and rushed to the demon's valley. This time, he had to go back to the valley and explain in detail. It would be a big deal if he went out again this time. The demon's valley was his foundation, so he could not be careless. It was better to explain all kinds of things clearly. Now, there were already many spirit beasts in the valley. After careful arrangements, Chi-Hua and the others could carry out their plan to build the demon's valley. Brother D walks so fast like a rabbit. Zhu Yao giggled and watched Deschertion leave. Then, her eyes fell on the jade box in front of her. She could not help but urge curiously, "This is a gift from Brother D. Sister, quickly open it and see what treasure is inside." The jade box was not big, only much bigger than a palm. It was rectangular and made of a very good piece of jade. Therefore, there was a sparkling jade light flowing on the surface of the jade box. It appeared to be unusually warm and gentle, and was very pleasant. "Throw it away. I don't want his things." Chun-Shi glanced at the jade box indifferently. She did not seem to care at all, but there was a ripple in her eyes. She did not even seem to notice this ripple. "Sister Shi, it's good to open it and take a look." Little sister is also curious about what kind of things can be taken out from Deschertion's hands. Medusa dissuaded. Her eyes fell on the jade box. "If you want to see it, you can open it yourselves." Chun-Shi's tone was not as firm as expected. Then I'll open it." The vermilion bird giggled and jumped forward. With a flap of its wings, it opened the jade box. As soon as it opened the box, a gentle light burst out from the box. The light radiated in all directions, but it was not dazzling. It was very gentle. She looked inside. "Wow. Sister, look, it's really beautiful." Zhu Yao shouted excitedly. "What a beautiful phoenix hairpin." Medusa's eyes flashed with a strange light. She looked at the box without blinking and sighed. Deschertion is a thoughtful person. This phoenix hairpin is made of 1,000-year-old warm jade. The method used to make it is the method of making a natal weapon. There's also a strange array inside. I can't tell what the talisman on it represents, but there is no doubt that it is a treasure. As long as you drip a drop of blood, it will recognize you as its master and become a natal weapon. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 270. It was a phoenix hairpin with a snow-white phoenix coiled around it. Every feather of the phoenix could be seen clearly, and it was so lifelike that it looked like a living phoenix. It was completely snow-white, crystalline, and translucent, and this revealed a noble and elegant aura. If one looked carefully, one would notice that no matter if it was the phoenix or the feathers on the phoenix, all of them were actually formed from numerous tiny talismans gathered together. It was magical and extraordinary. Only the refining method of the immortal cultivation world could present such an incredible scene. Even if the carving skills of the mortal world were superb, it would be difficult to create such a lifelike phoenix hairpin without a trace of craftsmanship. If it was taken to the mortal world, it would probably become a priceless rare treasure in an instant. This was a magic weapon. As long as one dripped one's blood essence on it, it would immediately recognize its owner. There was even a chance that it could be upgraded to the level of a natal magic weapon. Tion had spent a lot of effort to make this phoenix hairpin. He had taken out a piece of thousand-year-old warm jade that he had obtained previously without hesitation. Moreover, he had specially spent time learning a lot of formations. That was why he was able to refine such a semi-finished natal magic weapon. Yes, sister, this hairpin is so beautiful. If you wear it on your head, it will definitely make you more beautiful. When the vermilion bird saw it, she was also happy and full of love. In this world, women were innately fond of beautiful things. For the sake of their beautiful faces, which one of them would not desperately cultivate various secret techniques to retain their beauty? For the sake of a face-retaining pill, no matter how high one's cultivation was, they would be moved. This phoenix hairpin had been made by Tion to be exceptionally beautiful. After seeing it, one could not help but fall in love with it. If sister doesn't want it, then Jur won't be polite. The vermilion bird blinked and thought to herself, Brother D, it's time for me, Jur, to show off my skills again. In the future, I won't stop until I extort dozens of gourds of spirit wine from you. While he was thinking, he said, in any case, it won't be long before Jur transforms. When the time comes, we can bring her along. There was a hint of playfulness in his words. When Chun-Shi heard this, her heart suddenly tightened. To be honest, she didn't mind giving it to others before she saw it. But after seeing it, she liked it at first glance. She thought to herself, this is from Tion. There's nothing wrong with accepting it. But if you want me to forgive him, a phoenix hairpin is just a dream. Thoughts spun rapidly in her mind, but her face remained calm and elegant as usual. She said, Big sister said no. If you like it, I'll give it to you later. Medusa could not help but chuckle when she heard that. She changed the topic and said, Big sister, the opening of the heavenly demon secret dimension this time is a fortuitous encounter that only comes once every few thousand years. Don't you plan on coming with us? Among the southern barbarians, Chun-Shi's cultivation was the highest. He could be called the demon king of his generation. If he could go, he could be called a powerhouse among the demon race. Perhaps the possibility of obtaining a fortuitous encounter in the secret dimension was higher. It was reasonable for Chun-Shi to go, but in the current situation, it seemed that she did not intend to go. Sure enough, Chun-Shi shook his head and said, No, it's already a great opportunity for me to live in the 100 Flowers Valley. This time, I just passed the 19th demon tribulation. I just need some time to cultivate in seclusion and stabilize my current realm. Moreover, there can't be no powerhouse in the southern barbarians. If you leave, and I leave too, the southern barbarians may not be taken advantage of by foreign enemies. So I won't go this time. What she said might be one of the reasons, but whether there were other reasons, it was difficult for others to know except for herself. Medusa smiled and did not probe further. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed quietly. On a mountain outside the southern barbarians, Tion was standing side by side with Medusa, looking into the distance. After a moment of silence, Tion said, Medusa, according to the map given by Chun-Shi, if we ride the demon wind ourselves, it will take at least 10 days to half a month to rush there, and it will be too exhausting. I happen to have a flying magic treasure here. If you don't mind, Let's go up together and reach the Misty Wave Island a few days earlier. Let's attend the gathering on the island." As he said, he turned his hand. With a flash of light, a snow-white spirit boat, like a floating cloud, appeared in his hand. It was only the size of a palm, but it had everything inside, just like a big boat in the secular world. There were cabins and all kinds of accompanying items. It could be said that there was nothing missing. He gently threw the spirit boat in front of him. Swish! With a flash of spiritual light, the palm-sized spirit boat immediately expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it had become abnormally huge, like a luxurious treasure boat. Around the boat, there were snow-white floating clouds constantly gathering and dispersing. The boat was hidden in the floating clouds. Even if it appeared in the secular world, it would not attract the attention of ordinary people. They would just think that it was a huge cloud. On the boat, there were clouds condensed from clouds that were constantly emitting spiritual light. It was incomparably magical and was a good treasure. This is the flying magic treasure of the core formation cultivator who sneaked up on me back then. When Medusa saw this spirit boat, her eyes flashed, and a trace of surprise appeared on her calm face. She remembered very clearly that she had seen such a spirit boat back then. That's right. When that cultivator was killed, his life source magic treasure was damaged and turned into spiritual essence, which was then swallowed by my 7 sins demonic zither. However, this spirit boat is still very well preserved. I didn't think of it before. This time we're going to place as far away as Smoky Wave Lake, so I found it and refined it. This boat is called the Floating Cloud Boat. With its speed, we should be able to reach Smoky Wave Lake in 3 or 4 days. Tion gave a brief introduction. All flying magic treasures had a great advantage in speed, and this floating cloud boat was no exception. It was several times faster than flying with the Imperial Demon Wind. Moreover, the consumption of energy to fly the spirit boat was almost negligible. Swish! Without saying much, the two boarded the floating cloud boat together. Once they landed on the boat, they could clearly feel that this spirit boat had become bigger. Its range was still quite large. On the deck of the boat, there was a jade table where they could sit while slowly drinking tea and enjoying the scenery along the way. It could be said that they could kill several birds with one stone. While driving the spirit boat to Smoky Wave Lake, while sitting around the jade table on the deck, Tion wasn't stingy. He took out the wine god's gourd and a set of wine cups, and poured a cup for himself and Medusa. On the boat, they drank while looking at the scenery along the way, and talked about some cultivation problems. On the way, they didn't seem to be bored. With the speed of the spirit boat, it was naturally extraordinary. Tens of thousands of rivers and mountains were constantly left behind. Sitting on the boat and looking at the mountains and rivers of the continent, it was really a magnificent scenery. The towering steep mountain peaks were almost innumerable. It was impossible to estimate how big the entire Zijin continent was. One simply couldn't see the end of it at a glance. On the 3rd day, the floating cloud boat rushed to Smoky Wave Lake as usual. Suddenly, a surprised voice came from Tion's mouth. The spirit boat also suddenly stopped in midair. This stop seemed to be condensed in midair, as if a huge white cloud had condensed in midair. Why did we stop? Medusa asked in surprise. The Smoky Wave Lake should still be some distance away. He secretly compared it with the map. In front of him, there were only mountains and rivers, and there was no lake. Obviously, they hadn't reached the Smoky Wave Lake yet. However, Tion looked down in surprise. Following his gaze, he saw a group of demon clan hurrying forward on a demon wind. Looking at their direction, they were also going to Smoky Wave Lake. Logically speaking, there was naturally nothing to be surprised about since the demon clan was hurrying on their way. However, the appearance of this group of demon clan below greatly surprised Tion. Look, these demon clan obviously don't have the cultivation of shape-shifting, but they all have the appearance of shape-shifting. It's fine if they can shape-shift, but how can their shape-shifting be so incomplete that their original appearance is exposed on their heads? Strange, it's really strange. I've never seen them like this in the southern barbarian lands. Tion pointed at the group of demon clan in confusion. Medusa fixed her eyes on them. Indeed, there were no less than 100 demon clan members gathered together, and they all had the body of a human. It looked no different from shape-shifting. However, if one looked carefully, one could find that the shape-shifting of these demon clan members was not complete like that of Tion and her. There were deer heads, wolf heads, and so on their heads. They were in all kinds of strange shapes, and their faces were their original appearances. Moreover, there were many tails behind them, and one of their 2 hands was like a claw. Their faces were ferocious and looked really strange. Everyone could tell that they were demon clan members. Since Tion embarked on the path of demon cultivation, he had been practicing steadily step by step, from spirit beast to demonic beast, until he became a real, shape-shifting demon clan member. Every step he took was firm. However, he never knew how a normal demon clan member could shape-shift into this appearance. Oh, so you're talking about them. These are all demon clan members who have been enlightened by the demon awakening technique. It's said that very few demon clan members know this kind of demon clan secret technique. I didn't expect to see it here. This demon awakening technique is really amazing. It's worthy of being one of the great secret techniques of our demon clan. Medusa's eyes showed a hint of understanding, and a faint light shone in them. Demon awakening technique? What kind of secret technique is that? How come I've never heard of it? Tion couldn't help but ask curiously. He searched through all the memories in his mind. Whether it was the bloodline inheritance or the ancient records of the demon clan in the 100-Flower Valley, there was not the slightest impression of this demon awakening technique. However, from Medusa's expression, he could see that this was definitely an incredible secret technique. He thought to himself, could it be that this demon awakening technique is related to this group of demon clan members in front of me? To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 271. It's normal that you haven't heard of it. Medusa glanced at Tion indifferently. She opened her cherry lips and said, "It's only been 3 or 4 years since you came to the southern barbarian lands. You don't know a lot of things about the demon clan. Since we're here today, I'll tell you. Let's talk on the way." In the past few days, they talked with each other on the boat. They talked about their own cultivation and some interesting things they encountered. The unfamiliarity between them had long been eliminated. In addition, they were all members of the southern barbarian lands, so it was easy for them to make friends. Until now, they regarded each other as friends. "Sure, Tion, I'm all ears." Sakura was naturally overjoyed. He waved his hand and let the floating cloud ship continue to move forward. He was quite interested in things that he didn't know about. Not to mention, this demonic technique seemed to have a huge connection with the demon race. He immediately guessed in his heart that if he could obtain this secret technique, it might bring him great benefits. It would definitely be helpful for developing his force. Sure enough, he heard Medusa say in detail, "In fact, the demon awakening technique is a magical secret technique left by our demon clan ancestors in the ancient times. It is said that in the ancient times, almost all the clansmen who had some achievements in this secret technique knew about it. It is the most basic secret technique. It is also the most important secret technique, because, while hurrying on the way, he listened. After hearing this, Tion's heart was almost in an uproar. An extremely shocked expression emerged in his chest. It turned out that this demonic technique was really an important secret technique of the demon clan. It had an extraordinary effect on the development of the demon clan. In this world, take the ancient times as an example. At that time, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was abnormally abundant. Even a place with barren spiritual energy could be compared to many of the cultivation sects of the present. They could absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth by just taking a breath. It could be seen how abundant the spiritual energy was. Therefore, at that time, a large number of birds and beasts, all kinds of strange beasts and natural spiritual beasts, all transformed and stepped into the demon clan. At that time, the demon clan could be said to be blessed by heaven and had many strong people. They were able to dominate the world. It was one of the most powerful forces. But even in such a situation, Yi Zichen didn't care. Similarly, there were many birds and beasts that, due to their innate aptitude, were unable to transform into demons, take on human form, and cultivate even though they could absorb quite a bit of spiritual qi. Their own consciousness was also muddled. They only developed in the direction of mutated beasts and ferocious beasts. There are many such examples. After all, there are many demons, but there were even more ordinary birds and beasts. There were countless of them. Therefore, the powerful figures of the demon race gathered together and created a secret technique. This secret technique was the demon awakening technique. What was the so-called awakening demonic art? In truth, it was to use a secret technique to forcefully awaken the intelligence of ordinary birds and beasts that did not have the potential to step onto the path of demonic cultivation. Furthermore, once their intelligence was awakened, they would immediately take on a form similar to human form. However, there was a huge flaw in this form. It was just like what they saw just now. The transformation would not be complete, and they would show their original appearance. For example, if one was originally a rabbit, after being enlightened by the awakening Yao art, their head might not be able to completely transform into a rabbit's head. This kind of flaw was unavoidable. In the world, the yin was 50, the heavenly Tao was 49. In this world, perfection was not necessarily a good thing. The price of forcefully being enlightened was that the transformation would not be complete. Another point was that their intelligence was hard to increase. In terms of cultivation, their speed would be slower than normal Yao. But compared to not being able to cultivate, this was a very rare matter. Usually, the Yao that had undergone the awakening demonic art were mostly subordinates of some Yao king. When they fought, most of them did not fear death. They were the best subordinates to charge and break through enemy lines. What made the Yao most fond of this technique was that when this awakening demonic art was used, it could enlighten a group at once. It was very convenient. Even though there was a taboo when it was used, and it could only be used 3 times a year. Each time, it could not enlighten more than 1,000, but it cannot be denied that this was a wondrous secret technique. It was very important to the growth of the Yao race. This awakening Yao art is so wondrous. If our southern barbarians had it, then wouldn't we be able to turn large groups of beasts that could not form intelligence into Yao and increase the overall power of the southern barbarians? Disher Tion's eyes revealed traces of strange light as he thought to himself, "This kind of secret technique is of great help to the development of my forces." Such a little demon, although his aptitude is not very good, but as long as he is willing to work hard, he will have great potential. Also, they have the advantage of numbers. Awakening demonic art was a gremlin. Wasn't there a large gathering at Smoke Wave Lake this time? He could go and see if he could trade for this kind of secret technique. Thinking to himself, he made a decision. He would find the demon awakening art sooner or later and get it. This secret technique was a treasure to him. Our southern barbarians? Medusa lightly shook her head. She raised her head to look at the clouds, sea, and sighed. You do not know, but according to the records, after the great change of the Yao race in ancient times, the human race rose up. The human race wanted to become the only ruler of the continent. So they took advantage of the great change of the Yao race to launch a sneak attack and killed many experts. They killed countless of our Yao clansmen. Billions of Yao clansmen were massacred. At that time, the Yao clansmen's blood dyed the entire earth red. A rain of blood fell from the sky for 9 days and 9 nights. Ghosts wailed and gods howled. There were countless casualties. The remaining Yao could only retreat into the mountains and preserve the last thread of their bloodline. In this massacre, many of the records and methods of the Yao race were destroyed. Countless secret techniques were lost. There were not even many that knew the awakening Yao art. Up until now, the number of people that know the awakening Yao art can be counted on one hand. It is also very precious. Even if they know, they will not easily tell others. It is very difficult to obtain it. Our southern barbarians naturally do not have such a secret technique. If it wasn't for Sister Shi, I fear that our southern barbarian Yao race would not be as strong as it is today. When Medusa spoke of the bitter past that had been passed down from ancient times, her voice was unusually bleak. Her voice was deep and carried a thread of hatred buried deep in her blood. So there was such a thing. Di Shirtian realized, and his suspicions were resolved. All along, he had been puzzled by why the Yao had fallen to such a state of decline. Because, according to his personal experience, the Yao race had been a peerless and powerful race in ancient times. How had they suddenly fallen to such a state? It was hard to understand. Many of the demon race's cultivation methods and secret techniques had been lost. It was impossible that nothing had happened during this period of time. So that's how it is. Di Shirtian nodded inwardly. With his intelligence, he had roughly deduced the cause of the decline of the Yao race in the blink of an eye. First, the demon clan had encountered an inexplicable change in the ancient times, causing the elites and experts of the clan to fall at the same time, or even go missing. This change was equivalent to destroying the countless top cultivation techniques and inheritances of the demon clan. This was a top inheritance, but at least there were other cultivation methods that could be passed down, and the Yao race would not completely decline. They could still hold on. However, the human race hit them when they were down at this time. They suddenly launched a campaign to exterminate the Yao race, and instantly killed countless experts of the Yao race who had survived. In the chaos, the Yao race had suffered countless casualties, and countless cultivation methods had been destroyed. In the end, most of the experts were killed, leaving behind some juniors who were not a concern. Under such circumstances, it was difficult for the Yao race to not decline. Those who are not of our race must have a different heart. Di Shirtian was a human in his previous life, and in this life he had a deep understanding of the human race's nature. He was very clear that it was only natural for the human race to do such a thing at that time. It was no wonder. How could there be two tigers on one mountain? If they wanted to be the main character, the Yao race would be the obstacle in front of them. All right, there is something I still don't understand. According to what you said, the Yao race suffered heavy losses when we fought with the human race back then, and almost all of our elites were destroyed. At that time, the human race should have no reason to let the Yao race go. How could they allow our Yao race ancestors to hide in the mountains and not care? Di Shirtian was very puzzled about this. His curiosity was completely aroused in his heart. He was instinctively curious about the Yao race's past. Medusa frowned slightly and thought for a while. She shook her head in confusion and said, "I am not too sure about this. What I said just now was told to me by Sister Shi when we were chatting back then. If you want to ask, Sister Shi might know. Not many of the Yao race know about that period of history." Seeing this, Di Shirtian did not ask anymore. He only thought about it in his mind, constantly deducing the various possibilities of the ancient times. He wondered what kind of unforeseen event could cause the peerless experts of the Yao race to fall and disappear one after another. He was very curious about that period of history. Vaguely, he guessed that what happened in the ancient times must be related to some big secret of the entire Zijin continent. Otherwise, it would be impossible to cause such a big impact. Come, try the 100 Flowers fairy wine that I nourished in the wine god gourd. It should be more than 10 years old now. Di Shirtian took out the 100 Flowers fairy wine again. The time the wine god gourd was different. It passed very quickly. 1 year outside was 10 years inside. It could be said to be the best treasure for storing wine. They chatted as they drank the wine. The floating cloud boat could move forward by itself after putting in spirit stones. It could not be infused with Yao Qi. Its speed was as fast as a white steed passing by, leaving a trail of white cloud light in the void. In the blink of an eye, another day passed quietly. The Smoky Wave Lake was already in front of them. It would not take long to arrive. During this period of time, they encountered more and more demons, and all of them were rushing to the Smoky Wave Lake. There were many of them. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.